Good afternoon and welcome to the National Capital Planning Commission's March 2nd, 2023 open session. First, I'd like to ask Ms. Coster, can you please take the roll call?
Certainly. Commissioner Kozar.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner McMahon.
I'm here.
Thank you. Commissioner May.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Argo.
I'm here.
Thank you. Commissioner Hewlett.
Here.
Thank you. Chair Goodman.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Green.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Wright.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Dixon.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Cash, I know is not here, and Commissioner Davis, also not present. I'll note that Marcella Costa, the Executive Director, Ann Schuyler, the General Counsel, and Diane Sullivan, the Director of the Urban Design and Plan Review Division, are also in the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Coster. And noting the presence of a quorum, I'd like to call the meeting to order. And today's meeting is being live streamed and will be available in a few days as a video on NCPC's website. If there's no objection, the agenda as posted is adopted as the order of business for today. And we will play a short video clip of the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God,
God indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. NCPC will continue to conduct meetings online until the renovations on the commission chamber are complete. I want to share how we will conduct commission meetings and business. Following staff presentations and any other testimony, I will ask for a motion and for a second as appropriate. During the commission deliberations, I will use the round robin format to ask each commissioner if they have any comments. As a reminder, during deliberations, all commissioners should be on video during that time, unless you're experiencing technical difficulties. At any other time, when commissioners wish to be recognized, they should unmute and ask to be recognized. Next, the agenda item number 2 is report of the chair. And I do want to report that the GSA Administrator, Robin Carnahan, has informed NCPC of the designated alternates to serve on her behalf in the commission. They are Nina Albert, Commissioner, Public Building Service, Melanie Gilbert, Regional Commissioner, Public Building Service, Mina Wright, Director, Office of Planning and Design Quality, and Christy Tunstall Williams, Deputy Director, Office of Planning and Design Quality. I've also had the opportunity to meet with several of the commissioners over the past month, and I'm very grateful for your generous welcome. And I also appreciate all the conversations that we've had in our introductory meetings. I just am very grateful to all of you. Agenda item number 3 is a report of the Executive Director, Mr. Costa, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon. Today's staff will present the final guidelines for the Monumental Core vertical and surface streetscape elements and request the Commission's acceptance. In April, we will also present the draft guidelines for the small-scale streetscape elements and request a release for a 60-day public comment period. I do want to take this opportunity to thank our Streetscape Intergovernmental Working Group members, which includes the National Park Service, Federal Highways Administration, Smithsonian, General Services Administration, and the District Office of Planning and District Department of Transportation. I also want to commend our NCPC staff, Beth Miller, Paul Jutton, and Jeff Jamawat for their tremendous work. And finally, I'd like to thank our Monumental Core Streetscape Project Manager, Megan Dowker, for her professional leadership during this entire initiative. You do have my written report in your packets, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Acosta. And does anyone on the commission have a question? Hearing none. Agenda item number 4 is the legislative update. Ms. Schuyler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have nothing to report this month.
Thank you, Ms. Schuyler. Are there any questions for Ms. Schuyler? from the commission? Hearing none, agenda item number 5 is the consent calendar. There is one item on this month's consent calendar. This is the to approve the final master plan for the George Bush Center for Intelligence in Fairfax County, Virginia. It was submitted by the United States government. Are there any questions or discussion on the consent calendar?
Madam Chair, I move approval.
I second.
Thank you. I thank you, Commissioner Hewlett, and Commissioner May. Was that for the second, or was that Commissioner Green?
Commissioner Dixon.
I think it was Commissioner
Commissioner-
Dixon.
Thank you, Commissioner Dixon. Ms. Coster, can you confirm the motion in the second, please, and take the roll call vote?
Certainly. The motion was made by Commissioner Hewlett and seconded by Commissioner Dixon. With that, Commissioner Cozart,
Yes.
Commissioner McMahon,
Yes.
Commissioner May,
Yes.
Commissioner Argo, Commissioner Argo.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Hewlett,
Yes.
Chair Goodman,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright,
Yes.
and Commissioner Dixon.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Coster. The motion has carried. Agenda item 6A is a request to approve preliminary site and building plans for the Bureau of Engraving and Printing Currency Production Facility. Ms. Free?
Thank you. Can you hear me and see my screen?
Yes?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Well, good afternoon, Commissioners and Chair Goodman. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has submitted preliminary site and building plans in coordination with the Bureau of Engraving and Printing and the Department of the Treasury for a new currency production facility in Beltsville, Maryland. The Commission reviewed concept plans for the currency production facility in April 2021, followed by an information presentation in July of 2021. Today, the Commission is reviewing the preliminary site and building plans, and final review is anticipated for later this year. The Commission's preliminary review focuses on if the applicant addressed the comments and recommendations made during the concept review, and topics such as access, parking, building design, and with the comprehensive plan policies. And overall, staff recommends approval of the preliminary site and building plans with comments. In the following slides, I'll provide a brief overview of the existing site and the purpose of the project, and then I'll review the updates made since the concept plan. The proposed currency production facility, or CPF, in Beltsville will replace the existing facility located in downtown Washington, D.C., which was built in 1914. The existing CPF is no longer able to support the needs of a modern currency production facility, and several options were considered for modernization, including renovation. However, studies concluded that a new facility would better accommodate required security features and be more cost-effective than renovating the existing facility. After an extensive site evaluation study, Congress passed the 2018 Farm Bill, which authorized and directed an interagency land transfer of a portion of the Beltsville Agricultural Research Center, or BARC for short, from the United States Department of Agriculture to the Department of the Treasury, specifically to construct and operate a currency production facility. The currency production facility will be located about 4 miles north of the Greenbelt Metro Station and about midway between Interstate 95 and 295. These south.
Ms. Free, I just wanted to, this is Julia Coster, I just wanted to stop for a minute. We're having a little bit of a lag.
Okay.
But why don't you go ahead and I'll let you know if it continues to happen.
Okay, thank you. The selected 104-acre site is bound by Powder Mill Road to the south, Odell Road to the north, and a forested buffer to the east, and agricultural fields to the west, Within the site are buildings and structures that are contributing resources to the Bark Historic District. All but 3 of the existing buildings on the site have been abandoned since 2012. Institutional, commercial, agricultural, and residential uses surround the site. Private residences immediately border the site to the north along Odell Road. The project site and its approaches present a bucolic image with rolling agricultural fields, mature forest, and meadows. And in the next section of the presentation, I will discuss the proposed project, its site plan elements, and changes.
Ms. Free, we're still having a little connection issue. If you'd like to restart on that one, but I'd suggest turning off your camera for the moment.
Okay, let me do that quickly. Okay, and just to back up a moment, in the next section of the presentation, I'll discuss the proposed project, its site plan elements, and changes to the site plan since the concept review. Is that connection coming through clearer?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll begin by noting the Commission's previous comments focused on tree preservation and replacement, impacts to water resources, the design of the new entrance road, lighting and noise, building design, and transportation and parking. The preliminary plans address these topics and also include new information about perimeter security, green building, and outreach and environmental justice. The concept plan proposed a 921,000 square foot building with a square footprint and a building height between 40 and 50 feet with solar arrays and green roof proposed on the rooftop. Surface parking included 1,234 spaces, and primary access to the site is planned from Powder Mill Road. Loading and service functions are located on the north side of the building, and an emergency egress is proposed off of Odell Road. The preliminary site plan is generally consistent with the concept plan. However, the applicant reduced the amount of surface parking from 1,234 spaces to 849 spaces, which adds about 4 acres of green space back into the plan. The square footprint of the building was selected for its compact form, which allows for maximum distance from the secure perimeter, protection of natural features, conservation of view sheds, and optimum adjacencies of building programs. After entering the site via a new entrance on Powder Mill Road, vehicles are divided according to their business and screened through dedicated gatehouses. As I mentioned, the access point on Odell Road is for emergency use only. The design for the proposed entrance road shows a curved alignment that follows the existing terrain, avoids an existing and intermittent stream and forested area to the east, and prevents motorists from speeding. Informal tree plantings will complement the existing landscape character and screen the view of existing bark buildings. The road itself is designed with 1 inbound travel lane and 2 outbound travel lanes and incorporates an 8-foot wide separated shared use path that will connect into the county's future bicycle improvement plans along Powder Mill Road. And here we have a look at the proposed entry visualized both in the summer and in the fall when the foliage is less dense. You can see here there is an entrance sign proposed at the intersection to mark the site's main entrance. The proposed signage program includes vehicular wayfinding, a site entrance sign, and building signage at the main entrance. Signage typeface is inspired by the serial numbers that are printed on bills before they enter circulation. Staff recommends that the signage program is expanded to include wayfinding for pedestrians and cyclists, and also requests a plan with proposed sign locations and sign elevations. The project also includes a secure perimeter that consists of an 8 to 9 foot high anti-climb wire mesh fence and an 8-foot wide patrol path. Staff notes the perimeter security fence and patrol path will enclose the site except for the existing wetland in the southeast corner of the site to minimize impacts. A 20-foot clear zone is required on both sides of the perimeter security fence. However, only tree trunks and limbs within 9 feet of the perimeter fence will be removed. And overall, staff appreciates the applicant's efforts to balance perimeter security requirements with impacts to existing trees and water resources. The design of the perimeter security fence is also sensitive to the immediate residences along Odell Road to the north. Perimeter lighting will be used to illuminate potential security threats on an as-needed basis. Otherwise, no perimeter lighting will be provided aside from at vehicular entrances. And here we have day and nighttime renderings along Odell Road that illustrate the limited visual impacts of the secure perimeter. During the concept review, the commission requested that the applicant address potential light and noise impacts to the nearby residences. The site plan indicates lighting interior to the site will be limited to areas necessary for safety and circulation. Light levels will be minimal and targeted on horizontal surfaces to restrict uplight and protect the night sky. The applicant also prepared a noise technical memorandum that concluded that operation of the CPF would have negligible noise levels that are consistent with current daytime conditions and less than significant adverse noise impacts from nighttime operations. Overall, staff finds that the loading dock light and noise impacts to the residences will be limited because the loading is located 740 feet from the nearest residences. Lighting will be buffered from view by 480 feet of existing forest, and all regular non-emergency vehicle trips to and from the site will be routed to the south through the new entrance road along Powder Mill Road. I'll now speak to the potential environmental impacts, beginning with tree preservation and replacement. The project proposes preservation of more than 20 acres of existing trees. And while the proposed building is sited to minimize impacts to existing forested areas, approximately 20 acres of trees will be cleared, including 140 specimen trees. The applicant prepared a tree survey to identify the size, location, and condition of the trees to be removed, many of which are in fair or poor condition. The tree replacement plan proposes a combination of reforestation and individual tree replanting, consisting of 2,500 new trees, which includes 3.9 acres of reforestation and 1,024 replacement trees. This replacement strategy will result in a net increase of on-site tree canopy at maturity, and staff finds the proposed tree preservation and replacement plan is consistent with the comprehensive plan's policies. The existing landscape is the preliminary driver for the proposed landscape. However, the plans did not include a proposed landscape plan. Therefore, staff requests that the applicant submit a detailed landscape plan that identifies the size, location, and species of proposed trees, understory plantings, and meadow areas. In addition, Prince George's County indicated in their comments that Odell and Powder Mill roads would typically require a 40-foot wide landscape buffer. And therefore, staff recommends that the landscape plan should include additional landscape buffering on Odell and Powder Mill Road where possible. There are several wetlands and 2 streams located on or near the project site. Impacts to wetland streams and their buffers are anticipated to be minor and in many cases temporary. Particularly, Wetland 4 is a large jurisdictional wetland at the southeast corner of the site that will be preserved as a site amenity with an overlook. Approximately 0.06 acres of Wetland 4's buffer will be disturbed. The submitted preliminary plans indicate that the operation of the CPF would produce approximately 120,000 gallons per day of wastewater. Wastewater would be pre-treated on site prior to discharging to the USDA sanitary sewer system, where it would be further treated prior to discharging into Beaver Dam Creek, which is a nearby Tier 2 perennial stream. The stream is highlighted here in yellow on the slide. The final environmental impact statement concluded that downstream water flow and quality would not be substantially affected. However, we recently learned that BEP is developing a new approach that would avoid wastewater discharge to Beaver Dam Creek entirely, which the applicant will discuss in more detail after my presentation. Regarding stormwater management, the proposed project will increase the amount of impervious surface area from an existing 17.3 acres to approximately 43 acres. However, the project is utilizing low impact design techniques such as green roof, rainwater harvesting, pervious paving, and microbiome retention to retain and reuse 100% of stormwater on site, which would meet local, state, and federal stormwater management requirements. And now that I've covered the site plan elements, I'll discuss the building design and architectural program. At the core of the building is the manufacturing hall, which is where the currency is produced. The height of the building at the core is approximately 50 feet to accommodate the equipment required to produce the currency. The north side of the building contains the warehouse, storage areas, Federal Reserve vault, and wastewater treatment plant. The east side is primarily occupied by mechanical, electrical, and plumbing services for the building. The building height steps down to approximately 40 feet above these spaces. Staff notes the building height is driven by programmatic needs and steps down where possible to minimize the appearance of the building in the landscape. As seen in section, the terrain slopes from west to east, burying a portion of the building at its west side. And staff notes that the existing grade and new landscape berms are further utilized to reduce the apparent building height. The building is sited such that only the top 14 feet of the building is exposed on the western side. The building facade reinforces institutional identity with metallic cladding that wraps the perimeter of the building. At the windowed portions, the metallic cladding consists of a perforated metal with patterning of finished currency. Staff finds the approach to the building facade design with patterned metal cladding creates a distinct and unique identity for the CPF without distracting from the surrounding rural landscape. But to better understand the patterning and details, staff is requesting enlarged building facade elevations and renderings that illustrate the material selections and the pattern details in the next submission. And here we have some views around the site that set the building within the landscape. The top left image is of the Tor Gatehouse, which has a reflective glass facade. The same treatment will be applied to the truck and main gatehouses. The CPF's roof is considered a fifth facade, as much of the project's enclosure is located on the roof. Overall, staff commends the project's rooftop design that includes an 8-acre photovoltaic solar array, approximately 550,000 square feet of green roof, and minimal roof-mounted mechanical equipment. Additional sustainable features include electric vehicle charging stations and native meadows, amongst others. The sustainable building design measures will be evaluated through the LEED design process, which is a third-party green building rating system. The project is targeting LEED Silver certification, but staff encourages the applicant to seek a minimum of LEED Gold certification. The project proposes an enhanced surface parking design that consists of permeable paving and parking bays, microbiome retention between parking bays, reinforced grass pavement, trees infilled between the parking bays, and submerged gravel wetlands. Comprehensive plan policies recommend the use of parking structures, preferably below ground, in the interest of efficient land use and good urban design. The applicant identified the proposed surface parking design as the preferred alternative for several reasons. For one, poor on-site soil conditions make below-grade structures not feasible. Two, viewshed impacts of the above-grade parking structure from Odell Road would be greater. And third, structured parking has a much higher rate of embodied carbon emissions when compared to surface parking. The applicant provided an information presentation in July of 2021 with an analysis of how the proposed surface parking has a smaller carbon footprint, considering both operational and embodied carbon compared to a structured or underground parking structure. It indicated that on a yearly basis, structured parking would generate approximately 41.5 million pounds of carbon per year. The surface parking would generate 7.4 million pounds of carbon per year. And staff finds that the surface parking is inconsistent with comprehensive plan policies. However, the construction and operation of the proposed surface parking as designed results in a lower carbon emissions than structured parking and achieves a low profile within the landscape that reduces viewshed impacts. Pursuant to the National Historic Preservation Act, the applicant initiated Section 106 consultation for the project, which contains 22 buildings and structures that were contributing to the Bark Historic District, 3 archaeological sites, and historic viewsheds. Consulting parties have developed a memorandum of agreement to address the impacts from this project, including minimizing the appearance of the facility and the landscape. As part of this process, an analysis of the viewshed surrounding the site was undertaken. Staff finds the viewshed analysis indicates the proposed CPF building and associated site improvements will be minimally visible from adjacent public roads and surrounding viewpoints. Here we have a view from Odell Road looking southeast. And another view here from Odell Road looking to the southwest. This is a view from nearby Edmondson Road looking northeast towards the site. This view is from Powder Mill Road looking northwest. And this last view here is from the adjacent agricultural fields from the west looking towards the new CPF. And in this next section of the presentation, I will discuss how the transportation management plan and parking strategy has evolved since the concept review. The concept plans proposed a 1-to-1 parking ratio for the CPF production staff and a 1-to-2 parking ratio for the administrative staff. This resulted in an overall parking ratio of 1 to 1.1 for the facility. As noted previously, the applicant reduced the amount of surface parking to 849 parking spaces, which is a 34% reduction. This reduction in parking results in a proposed 1 to 1.1 parking ratio for production employees and a 1 to 2.6 parking ratio for administrative employees. This results in an overall parking ratio of 1 to 1.4 for the facility. In its previous action, the Commission requested a number of items from the applicant to justify why the applicant could not meet the comprehensive plan's recommended 1 to 2 parking ratio. I will discuss these items in detail on the following slides. The Commission asked for an explanation of why the shift hours are difficult to adjust to better align with Metro operating hours. The applicant explained that CPF employee work shifts were negotiated in multiple collective bargaining agreements and are expected to remain the same because changing them would require updates to many employee contracts. The applicant also inquired with WMATA about changing operating times, who indicated that a system-wide change to the train schedules is not practical to accommodate a few hundred employees. As high concentrations of employees are commuting from Upper Marlboro in Maryland and Stafford, Virginia, the applicant completed example commutes for employees in both areas. This exercise demonstrated that the inbound commutes of day shift production staff would be limited by public transit because the earliest arrival time at the CPF in Beltsville would be at least 30 minutes after the day shift begins. And the last train that leaves the Greenbelt Metro Station would leave approximately 30 minutes before the evening shift ends on most days. Therefore, staff finds that the applicant has demonstrated a typical commute via public transportation would not be feasible for most production staff due to mandated shift times that conflict with transit operating hours. The applicant also provided proposed transportation demand management strategies, or TDM strategies, to limit single occupancy vehicle trips. These include expanding telework for administrative employees, increasing carpool or vanpool use, implementing an expanded USDA shuttle bus service from the Greenbelt Metro, and on-site bicycle and pedestrian pathways, and supportive improvements to the bicycle infrastructure in Prince George's County. Hello Work for administrative employees is a significant TDM strategy used to improve the parking ratio. Also, administrative employees are more capable of using public transportation because their start and end times fall within normal WMATA operating hours. And overall, staff supports the proposed TDM strategies used to provide a 1 to 2.6 parking ratio for admin employees, which exceeds the comprehensive plan's recommended 1 to 2 parking ratio. However, for production staff, the transportation management plan indicates that fewer employees will carpool in the future compared to existing conditions. And therefore, staff requests that the applicant revisit the 1 to 1.1 parking ratio for production staff with a focus on improving the percentage of employees who carpool, since shift times are regular and many are commuting from similar geographic areas. The applicant will also coordinate with USDA to expand the existing shuttle program to create an on-demand flex route that operates between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. at a minimum to connect BEP employees who are commuting via metro to the Greenbelt Metro Station. The Commission also previously requested information about the CPF's visitor program and the potential impact of tours on the transportation network. The preliminary plans indicate that approximately 45,000 visitors per year are expected in Beltsville. And overall, staff finds the visitor program will not significantly impact the transportation network, as tours are ticketed and limited to 30 persons at a time, some of which will arrive by shuttle. And with regard to off-site traffic impacts, the traffic impact study identified 7 intersections as primary needs for improvement resulting from the operation of the CPF. The recommended improvements vary from signal timing to road widening, and staff is recommending that the off-site intersection improvements prioritize options that improve levels of service without increasing impervious surface area. And staff also requests a timeline for improvements to the intersection, the nearby intersections are completed prior to opening of the CPF to minimize traffic impacts to the surrounding community. And in response to Executive Order 13985, advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities through the federal government, NCPC developed an equity action plan that incorporates equity approaches into the agency's plan review processes. As such, staff notes that the applicant prepared a socioeconomics and environmental justice technical memorandum that identified an environmental justice community of concern is located within the project's region of influence. The memorandum describes and analyzes environmental justice conditions regarding race, ethnicity, income, and poverty conditions in the region of influence, which includes parts of the cities of Greenbelt and Beltsville. The memorandum found that significant adverse traffic and transportation impacts to the environmental justice community could result from operation of the proposed CPF from increased traffic volumes and degraded level of service conditions. However, staff notes that the applicant has detailed the impact reduction and mitigation measures for traffic and transportation as described in the transportation impact study to reduce adverse impacts to less than significant levels. As previously discussed, staff is recommending that these improvements are prioritized before the CPF opens and that the applicant provide a timeline for the improvements in the next submission. And further, staff notes that the applicant is in the process of preparing a supplemental EA or environmental assessment to evaluate the potential impacts to proposed traffic and utilities mitigation. The supplemental EA will include an analysis of cumulative impacts related to traffic and air quality. And with regard to outreach, the applicant has engaged in more than 35 stakeholder meetings since 2017. The draft EIS notice of availability was advertised in several local print media outlets such as the Washington Post. The applicant also mailed letters and hard copies of the notice of availability to all the stakeholders on the mailing list. A periodic newsletter containing updates regarding the project and contact information for stakeholders to use has been in circulation online and through postal mail since January 2022. And overall, staff finds that the applicant made a concerted effort to inform community stakeholders of the project and address public comments. And this concludes my presentation. I've incorporated the executive director's recommendations into the presentation, and they're also listed in the staff report for your reference. We have several representatives from the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, the Army Corps of Engineers, SOM Architecture, and the Transportation Planning team here to answer questions. And now I would like to introduce Mr. Leonard Oliar, Director of the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, who would like to make a brief statement. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon before the commission. I'd also like to thank the staff for all the work they've done with us during this project. The Bureau of Engraving and Printing's mission is to develop and produce United States currency notes trusted worldwide. We seek to set the world standard for banknotes through excellence in manufacturing and innovation. US currency is the world's currency. More than 2/3 of the value of our currency, 56 billion notes in circulation, is held overseas, primarily as a store of value. Demand for currency remains strong. Currency in circulation is a direct measure of demand for Federal Reserve notes, and currency in circulation continued to increase during the COVID-19 pandemic from $2 trillion in 2020 to $2.5 trillion in December 2022. Over the past 5 years, the volume of US currency in circulation has continued to increase, on average, more than 5% per year. Consumer cash holdings remain elevated. As a global currency, US banknotes face threats on all continents. The Bureau is continually challenged to remain ahead of the technological capabilities of counterfeiters. Currency is redesigned primarily for security reasons. The upcoming redesigned currency will contain new security features and a raised tactile feature so that blind and visually impaired people may denominate our currency by touch. The application of these new features requires new production equipment that will not fit in our current facility in Washington, D.C. BP has 2 currency production facilities for continuity of operations and to meet global demand. Currency production and the availability of currency is vital to the economic stability of the nation and the world. A shortage of US currency would have a devastating impact on the world economy. The DC's main and annex buildings are 103 and 79 years old, respectively. These aging, outdated facilities lack flexibility and space for modern manufacturing and have significant safety and security vulnerabilities that cannot be mitigated. We need a new replacement manufacturing facility to accommodate the larger, more sophisticated equipment and processes needed to produce the technologically advanced banknotes of the future. Renovating the existing facility has been studied numerous times during the past 30 years, and the need for building a new facility was concurred with in 2018 Government Accountability Study, Options for and Costs of a Future Currency Production Facility, GAO 18-338. BEP is excited about becoming part of the Prince George's County community. Over 60% of our employees live in Maryland, and about half of those live in Prince George's County. We will work hard to be a good neighbor and responsible steward of the site being entrusted to us. I know that our relationship with the surrounding communities will be mutually beneficial and productive. We look forward to continued dialogue and engagement with them. While we looked at several sites, the BARC property met Bureau requirements for location, security, accessibility, availability, size, and developability. BEP will continue to work with public stakeholders as the facility design and proposed roadway improvements advance. BEP was recently authorized to fund recommended offsite roadway improvements via the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2023. A comprehensive transportation management plan was established and revised to accommodate employees who drive, van pull, telework, and take public transportation to reduce parking requirements and minimize impacts on local traffic and quality of life for residents. Environmental concerns regarding the off-site roadway improvements, air pollution due to transportation activities, and off-site utility construction will be evaluated in a supplemental environmental analysis scheduled for completion by the end of this year. Working with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, USACE, BEP has conducted environmental assessments and developed appropriate mitigation plans that meet or exceed federal and state environmental standards and requirements. BEP will be a good neighbor and has a proven record of environmental stewardship over the years. We have received numerous environmental awards at our facility in Fort Worth, Texas, such as the Pretreatment Partnership Award for over 13 years and the Pollution Protection Award for an employee-driven solvent recycling program. BEP's environmental management system is ISO 14001 certified. BEP and USACE began this project with a solid commitment to sustainability. We selected a location with significant existing development and sited our facility on the property to avoid wetlands and minimize the number of trees impacted. In fact, when we are done, we will plant over 2,000 more trees than are there today. I am very proud of the substantial investment the Bureau is making with respect to environmental stewardship, including a green roof, implementation of tree replacement preservation strategies, and overall carbon emission reduction, solar photovoltaics, lighting and sound design, and stormwater management, including bioswales, capturing rainwater in cisterns and reusing it, and installing a permeable parking lot. In addition, the Bureau is working with Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission, WSSC, and Prince George's County to eliminate a major public stakeholder concern by directing the facility's wastewater into the WSSC system in lieu of the USD-owned operated wastewater treatment facility. In this manner, none of Bureau's wastewater will be discharged into Beaver Dam Creek. Thank you for the opportunity today to talk briefly on why we are doing this and how much the local environment means to me and to BEP.
Thank you, Director Oliar, and also Ms. Free. Do the commissioners have any questions at this time? Yes, Commissioner Hewlett.
I do. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Free, for your presentation, and Mr. Olihar. My question is, having gone through the staff report and the support that we have from some entities, but the opposition from others, I'd like to ask our counsel, Ms. Schuyler, or Ms. Free, but it's probably from Ms. Schuyler, to talk about the Congressional Act, the 2018 Congressional Farmland Act, Farm Act, the Farm Bill, about because I want to know whether there is a choice. It seems that a lot of the opposition seems to be about the location of this facility, and I'm not sure that we have flexibility on that note.
Sure, thank you, Commissioner Hewlett. I'm going to try this again with both my video and sound, so please let me know if there's any interruption in my connection. I'll start, and Ms. Schuyler can add to what I have to say here, is that the Farm Bill authorized the transfer of land between the two agencies, the USDA and the Department of Treasury, specifically for the construction of a currency production facility at this location. So as far as the location of this facility goes, it has been determined by Congress to go in Beltsville on the site that is included in the preliminary plans.
Okay, and Ms. Schuyler, was there anything to add on that?
I have not looked at the legislation for a while, to be honest with you. Ms. Free, if I could direct a question to you, is in your review, did you note that the language was obligatory, or was it that your sense that it was obligatory?
It was my sense in my review that it was obligatory, yes.
All right. I am happy to take a quick look at it while you continue to discuss and maybe be able to provide a final comment on that legislation before you complete your action on this application.
That's what I would like to know, because it seemed when I heard you respond, Ms. Free, you said Congress authorized, but I just want to figure out whether it's mandatory or not. Because if it's mandatory, which I sense that it is, then it's the other issues about the environment and whatnot that we want to address. the environment and the traffic and things like of that nature that we want to address. The location, might not be an option for us. But I just
So
would like
the language does say it authorized and directed. That seems pretty definitive to me.
Okay.
And it's the subject of great consternation for a lot of people, I think.
And that's why and as an attorney myself, I just wanted to hear from our legal counsel, just a final confirmation on that note.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we can have a robust conversation on a 20-year site selection process that did not include NCPC.
Okay.
Ms. Free, can I ask, do you have that legislation readily available that you could forward it to me quickly?
I just did, yes.
Oh,
Thank you.
bless you. Thank you. All right. To be continued.
Okay, in the meantime, while Ms. Schuyler is looking at that for the answer to the questions that were posed by Commissioner Hewlett, are there other commissioners with questions for either Mr. Olear or for Ms. Free?
I think Commissioner Cosart.
I see Commissioner Cosart. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good
Ms. Free, could you comment on if you have background in response to what was shared from the city of Greenbelt about limited time frame to provide feedback on the plans?
I'm so sorry, I was on mute. Of course, as part of NCPC's interjurisdictional review process, we do refer the plans through the Maryland Clearinghouse once when they are submitted, which was done at the concept review, the previous review, where we gathered comments from all agencies, local and state within Maryland. And the preliminary plans, when they were submitted, were shared on our website, including our summary of the plans that were submitted and all of the materials that we received as part of the package. We did notify the city of Greenbelt that day when they were posted to the website, and hopes that we would get comments from the city of Greenbelt as well as part of this review.
Thank you. Additional questions, Ms. Hewlett?
Well, not really an additional question. I looked at the sign up sheet, and I know that Ms. Ruby will be sign up to speak, and as well as the others. So we may get some clarification particularly on Commissioner Cosart's question from them when they speak as well. Thank you.
And thank you.
Chair?
Yes, yes, Commissioner Dixon.
Yeah, I have several questions, but I've learned over time that it's awfully good to hear the community's position, because they're probably going to surface some of the same questions I have and give us some clarification as to what their concerns are to be spoken to. So I'm going to stand by until I hear them.
Thank you, Commissioner Dixon. I'm doing the same, but we do have, unless there are other questions right now, Commissioner Dixon is correct. We do have 5 speakers signed up. And so, yes, Commissioner May, I think you have your hand up, or
Yes,
no?
it is.
Yes, okay.
So my first question has already been asked, and hopefully we will get greater or more information about that. I'm really curious about the wastewater discharge. I appreciate the fact that it's going into WSSC now, or at least theoretically going into that system rather than going into the creek. But what about the levels of toxicity that, that we've seen stuff in the submissions from community members, concerns about the levels of the toxicity of the wastewater to begin with, and is the fact that it would go into WSSC mean that it's going to be, eliminated there, because ultimately it all winds up in the Anacostia anyway. So I'm just curious about that.
Do we have someone who'd like to respond to that question? Yes, sir. Mr. Davis from BEP.
Hi, my name is Chuck Davis. I'm the program manager for the Bureau on this. And I think we've mentioned this before. Our current DCF facility currently discharges into the WSSC system and it goes through the Blue Plains treatment facility. That would be the same after discussion. That would be the same. Our understanding is that's the same treatment facility that WSSC would treat our water from Beltsville as well. It should be noted that of our approximately 120,000 gallons of water, 80,000 of it is just from cooling tower blowdown. I mean, it's not toxic water. And about 35,000 is traditional office sanitary, human waste. The remaining goes through a pre-treatment process on site to remove any oils, greases, metals, anything like that. We've also eliminated, as part of this design and as part of our manufacturing process, we've eliminated in this facility any galvanic plating operations. So that's chrome and nickel plating. We will not have that in this facility. So you're strictly looking at, the oils and greases and some metals, but that is pre-treated to a WSSC standard, which is monitored frequently by WSSC and the Bureau, because we have to meet their requirements before we discharge to their system. So all these discussions about toxic material, we don't see it. And we have a track record of pre-treatment both in DC and in Fort Worth of, maintaining the standards that are provided to us by the sanitary commissions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
If I could follow up, please.
Yes, sir.
So,
Commissioner May.
Unfortunately, the sound went out in my system here, and I missed the very beginning of your statement about where the water is going now, or something like that. If you could repeat that. Sorry.
Sure. Our existing DC facility discharges into WSSC and ultimately goes to the Blue Plains treatment facility. We have been working with WSSC about the new facility, and we are told that our discharge will go to the WSSC system and then go to the same treatment facility. So once we bring down operations in DC, it's the same stuff, but less actually, because we are getting rid of our chrome and nickel plating lines.
So the Blue Plains facility is operated by DC Water, not WSSC. So are you saying that WSSC is routing that water to Blue Plains to DC Water?
That's what we were told. I'm not sure. Is there anybody from Army Corps on here that would have additional information?
Is there anyone from the Corps of Engineers to respond to this question?
Chuck, what you just said, our understanding from WSSC is that is the facility that it goes through.
Right. Yeah, I'd like to.
Could I just have her identify herself for the record? Thank you.
Yes, Carrie Oscar, Army Corps of Engineers.
Okay, I mean, given the fact that Mr. Davis pointed to a DC water facility and not WSSC, I'm not feeling totally confident about the answers that we're getting so far. So I would appreciate it when we get to a final to have confirmation, since you're going to change it anyway from what was previously proposed, that there be clarity about exactly where the water is going and how it's being treated all the way through. I think that would be useful for people to understand, because I mean, at Blue Plains, it doesn't go into the Anacostia, but it does go into the Potomac. And you answered a question I had not asked, which is, where does it all go now? Which is that it goes to Blue Plains. Okay, so I appreciate that. I do have a question, a follow-on on the location, which there was an EIS that was conducted after the legislation was passed. And typically the sort of things that you look at in an EIS would be, where should this thing go? But were there actual alternative sites that were evaluated? And I apologize, you may have covered this in previous presentations and I've forgotten it, but we deal with a lot of cases, and so I can't always remember everything.
So as part of the EIS, this was the only site that was actively reviewed as part of the EIS. Prior to the EIS, there was 81 sites.
And that's not my question. That's not my question. And I don't want to take up more time than we have to. I just want to know. So it was only a single site that was considered. And then the EIS just examined basically a build here or a don't build here.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Because of the Farm Bill language.
I understand. Okay. And then the last question is there a timeline yet for when the CPS facility downtown will be vacated?
We are in the process of working with GSA on an alternative of analysis of alternatives. We anticipate the annex building being surplus to GSA. We are still looking at the main building on whether we will renovate that or whether we will also surplus that building and go into lease space. That is still being discussed. The annex building would probably be around 2030, 2031. The main building probably a little bit further down the road.
Okay. Appreciate that. There are other uses that are clamoring for space in that vicinity. And
Correct.
the use of the BEP building, the main building, as office space is really probably not the best idea, but we can go talk about that another time. Thank you. That's it for my questions.
Thank you, Commissioner May, and thank you, Mr. Davis, for your answers. Are there any further questions from the commission currently? And if not, hearing none, we will move into the 5 people who have signed up to speak today. And given the number of speakers, I just want to remind each of you to try to keep to your specified times for your testimony. And the first person we have is Marian Dombrowski with the Anacostia Watershed Community Advisory Committee. Ms. Dombrowski, you're representing an organization, so you have 5 minutes to speak. And before you begin, I just want to thank you for your kind welcome and your written testimony that you provided. Thank you for welcoming me to this position. But if you're ready to speak, we'd love to hear you.
Ms. Dombrowski.
Well, it appears as though we know we're having some technical difficulties with our.
Please let me. I'm sorry.
Okay. Ms. Dombrowski, if you want to go ahead and speak, but maybe turn off your
internet because my internet keeps crashing. Can you hear me?
Yes, maybe just turn
Hello?
your video off. We can hear you.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me at all? No. Okay.
We can hear you.
Yes, yes.
Hello?
we can hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Please go ahead and provide your testimony, Ms. Dombrowski, or we can return and try and help you connect.
Well, we're allowing staff to help Ms. Dombrowski. We can move on to Maureen Fine. Maureen Fine, are you able to connect, please? And you do have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Thank you
Yes,
very much.
welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Thank
we
you.
can hear you. Thank you.
So good afternoon.
I'm sorry, Ms. Fine, you just muted. If you could unmute, then we can hear you. Thank you. There you
Okay.
go.
We're
Very
good
good.
now. Okay.
Yes.
Anyway, good afternoon, and thank you so much for the really great questions that you asked that we all have been asking for quite a while. So I'm one of the 900,000 residents and non-residents who enjoy birding in Maryland. And I'm also a grandmother who knows that the future of my grandkids is tied to the future of biodiversity. So On behalf of the many bird species who will likely experience serious negative impacts due to the relocation of the BEP to Bark, I really appreciate that you're listening to what I have to say. So among the top 100 of thousands of eBird hotspots in Maryland, Bark is listed as number 36. So this is out of the top 100. This is a really big deal. The BEP relocation to Bark poses numerous threats to birds due to multiple factors, not limited to, but including habitat destruction and fragmentation, 24-hour noise and light pollution, and one of the most deadly, which is window strikes. In light of these serious threats, it is highly warranted that the BEP be held to the highest standards of bird-safe building design. The U.S. Green Building Council tells us bird-friendly strategies help building owners, and there is no incidental operating cost to making a building bird-friendly. On the contrary, the strategies can save on operating and energy costs, especially when these types of strategies are incorporated into the initial design phase rather than after the fact. So we also hear from the Green Building Council that not all LEED rated buildings are bird friendly. Builders must opt to use the bird friendly credit. And in my written testimony, I have put in a number of links, and one of them is to that LEED program. Let's see. So I also included a link to the facility standards for the Public Buildings Service, which is used for all of GSA's owned inventory, which is over 186 million square feet. I've included in my written comments, comments to the EIS back in December of 2020 from the Maryland Ornithological Society, which says that the information given by the BEP contractors is totally inaccurate as far as bird counts. And they've been doing ongoing studies for many years.
That's 3 minutes, Ms. Fine.
Okay, thank you very much. Please let's make the BEP building safe for birds. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fine. Thank you for your input. And does anyone have a question for Ms. Fine before we move on? Hearing none, thank you again. And our next speaker is Terry Ruby, the City of Greenbelt Director of Planning and Community Development. Ms. Ruby, you would have 5 minutes to speak. Are you on the Zoom?
Yes, I am on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Good afternoon,
Thank
Chair
you.
and members of the commission, and thank you. And pardon me because I am quite a bit under the weather, but I'm going to try to make it through the city's comments. And I've also submitted the written comments as well. But want to thank you for the opportunity to review and comment on the preliminary plans for the relocation of BEP to Bark. As it was asked by one commissioner, we do feel we were hampered in our ability, impeded, if you will, to really provide detailed comments today. For one, we received the plans or the notification on February 13th, and for a municipality to really have time to take it through its development review, that is too quick a turnaround for us, unfortunately. But also, in my opinion, we're used to seeing plans of the entire site, and that we can look at everything holistically, rather than what I believe was in the materials was more of a conceptual, illustrative PowerPoint presentation rather than the plans themselves. So that really, impeded our ability to look at all the details. But notwithstanding that, we look forward to the final plans in hopes that perhaps they should be shared sooner with the city. Obviously, we are a stakeholder and neighboring. We were also part of the scoping for the traffic impact analysis. So this is a project dear to our hearts, and we really would like the ability to comment in detail. But as the city has constantly affirmed our strong opposition to the siting of the BEP at BARC. We strongly assert that the proposed relocation will have significant impacts on BARC, the human and the natural environment. I know you've heard from the birding community, you'll hear from the Anacostia Watershed Committee, and we've heard from a lot of environmental groups regarding the environmental impacts. We've also summarized them in detail of our concerns in other comments that we've submitted to you all, but also we've provided our analysis of the environmental impact statement as well, that outlines those concerns. And we believe that the transportation impacts as well, and just overall impacts on the surrounding community, we have concerns of. We want to take this opportunity to reaffirm our position, and to also just ask that you take into consideration the previous testimony of the city, as well as the reference documents that we've provided, not only at this meeting, but also when you were talking about the conceptual plan. We believe those comments are largely valid still today. Do look forward to hearing more about the wastewater treatment and the efforts not to discharge it. So we look forward to having an opportunity for that dialogue to occur and to better understand that. I want to restate what the mission of BARC is. I mean, it's to provide the American public with an exceptionally talented, highly interdisciplinary scientific community in the USDA's largest scientific installation, and leverage these resources to envision, create, and improve knowledge and technologies that enhance the capacity of the nation and the world to provide its people with healthy crops, animals, and clean, renewable, natural resources, sustainable agricultural systems, and agricultural commodities and products that are abundant, high quality, and safe. We continue to assert that the relocation of BEP to BARC is in direct conflict with the stated mission. As well, we believe it is in direct conflict with BARC's own master plan, but also with local land use policies and plans as well. You'll see a number of Maryland National Park and Planning Commission's plans discuss BARC and discuss the value of BARC as an agricultural gem, if you will, and it discusses the need to preserve that gem. So we do have concerns about allowing such an industrial use to be located at BARC, and what message that is saying as for the future of BARC. Is it going to lead to more what we believe are destructive land uses that are not in keeping with any policies, procedures, both at a regional as well as a local level? So in closing, the city continues to urge the commission to oppose this project and for its adverse impacts on the environment and transportation and quality of life. And although not in our testimony letter, I would like to, because it was addressed, the city continues to have concerns about the transportation impacts and the off-site traffic improvements and what those improvements will be, as well as the environmental impacts of those improvements. And we do hope during the final review by NCPC that information is readily available for the public to review and comment, as well as there's been a lot of reference to off-site bike and ped improvements. And while the applicant is proposing on-site, it references in a lot of its materials the Prince George's County Master Plan and cited planned, if you will.
That's 5 minutes, Ms. Ruby.
Okay, improvements, but there's no mechanism for which those plans are scheduled for implementation or funding. So thank you very much for the opportunity to comment, and look forward to discussing this project more.
Well, thank you, Ms. Ruby. We're very grateful for your input. And at this time, do any of the commissioners have? Yes, Betty has Commissioner Hewlett has a question for Ms. Ruby.
Yes, thank you. And it's good to see you, Ms. Ruby.
Me too.
Okay, so as we discussed earlier, we may or may not have any flexibility in terms of the location. And so I'm looking over at the comments. I wasn't on the National Capital Planning Commission in 21. But I did notice that the city of Greenbelt sent in a letter on the concept plan. And in that letter, it was determined that it was suggested that if we have no flexibility on the location itself, there were several conditions that the city would like to see addressed. And that's on the last page of our page 22 of our internal staff report. So if we can't, now those, our staff report indicates that those have all been addressed. And you know, are you still standing by that if in fact we have no choice on the location? Those
Standing by. I mean, if it were to be located here, we do still have concerns, if you will, from, you know, a transportation and mitigation and environmental perspective. Those concerns stand. I think that I would be remiss if I said that there have not been some positive changes since the commission has reviewed the conceptual site plan, but we had, even if you look at our environmental impact, we had a number of concerns about some of the methodology used to draw certain conclusions, and I think those still stand.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to know, you know, if in fact, if we had no flexibility on the location, on the siting, whether we could address most of the other concerns that you have raised. And I think our NCPC staff has done a good job working with the Bureau of Engraving and Permit and Printing rather, to address a lot of these issues. And we as commissioners may want to address them even further. But I just wanted to know where you stood on that. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Hewlett, and thank you, Ms. Ruby. Are there any further questions for Ms. Ruby? Hearing none, our next speaker is Patricia Jackman. And Ms. Jackman, are you present? And if you are, if you would like to take the floor, we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Ms. Jackman.
I tried to put my camera on, but it's not coming on. But anyway, good afternoon. I live in New Carrollton, which is in Prince George's County. And you can imagine my nervousness now because I planned my whole presentation to you on the fact that the wastewater from this project was going to be treated in the Bark wastewater treatment facility and then released into Beaver Dam Creek. So to hear just now that the Army Corps of Engineers and the project is now going to be using WSSC kind of gives my heart a flutter. So please bear with me while I pull this together. We were extremely concerned that, you know, this 120,000 gallons of the chemical wastewater was going to be treated at Bark's plant, especially since that plant is now in non-compliance in its current state with the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. So as Commissioner May was bringing up, we're hearing WSSC will now process all the wastewater. Well, we need clarification on the infrastructure of WSSC, what they will require to be putting pipes and supporting this project at the agricultural center, and also a clarification of where it will all go. All this wastewater will go. You know, I oppose locating the current seed production facility at Bark with its acres of trees and farmlands that filter the air we breathe and the water running into the bay. It's just the wrong place to locate an industrial facility. And I think that now, if we get more clarification on the water discharge, we'll find out just how this will be proceeding. But in the meantime, there are a lot of land use projects vying for access to agricultural land on Bark. The superconducting magnetic levitation train project wants a 200-acre train maintenance facility on Bark. And I know Maryland Department of Environment is conducting a Tier 2 review of Beaver Dam Creek for the maglev. Wastewater or stormwater is going to go into Beaver Dam Creek. So I think that Tier 2 water reviews of all of the proposed projects should be completed for the cumulative impacts to Beaver Dam Creek. And I also agree with the city of Greenbelt just that the CPF industrial project is inconsistent with applicable planning documents. There are the federal elements that maintain.
It's 3 minutes, Ms. Checkman.
ARS process mission. And thank you very much for this opportunity to share. My written testimony is more complete. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate both your written testimony, but we also appreciate you engaging with us today and sharing your insights. So thank you, Ms. Jackman. Are there questions for Ms. Jackman at this time? Any commissioners with questions? Hearing none, we have another speaker. The speaker is Benjamin Fischler. Mr. Fischler, you'll have 3 minutes to provide testimony. Are you here?
Yeah, yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you
Okay,
fine. Thank
Great,
you.
great. Thank you for the opportunity to address this commission about the proposed BEP facility. I apologize, my camera is not working either, so I'm glad you can hear me. My name is Benjamin Fischler, and these comments are submitted for me personally as a citizen of Greenbelt, Maryland, Prince George's County. Like the Greenbelt City Council, I remain opposed to the relocation of the proposed facility at BARC. I really appreciate Ms. Ruby's recitation of BARC's own mission statement, and really question the whole process back in 2018. I don't think there was public involvement really in that congressional action. So, however, if this project does move forward at BARC, it's of critical importance to minimize the significant environmental impacts of this project. And I do appreciate that BEP has been obviously making some efforts there. So I hope Marion will be able to speak later. I was counting on her covering a number of other topics, but my written testimony is focused on the on air quality and the effect of emissions from the traffic that increased traffic of this project would bring about. Although BEP's proposed design for the parking lot has reduced the number of parking spaces, if this facility is built at BARC, there will be significant additional traffic traveling to and from the proposed currency production facility, essentially around the clock. And the traffic is estimated to include over 7,000 dump truck trips during the construction period. And then after the facility is in operation, over 1,000 single occupancy employee vehicles driving to and from it daily. An average 75 heavy duty diesel trucks delivering and picking up materials weekly. 45,000 visitors every year. They're driving in buses, about 30 visitors per hour, 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year. So that's a lot of traffic. And I know it's been mentioned a number of times here that there's a supplemental environmental assessment on traffic impacts. That seems to me like that deadline keeps moving. I hear it's the end of the year, but which year? So this increased traffic, including long queues at most of the 15 intersections BEP studied, will likely adversely affect air quality in the local area from additional car and truck exhaust. 2 of the Maryland Department of the Environment's 24 air monitors in the state that measure ground level concentrations of pollutants and hazardous air pollutants are near the proposed facility. One's only about a mile north and the other about 3 miles
It's 3 minutes,
southeast.
Mr. Fischler.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, in any case, I think you get my point. We're concerned about the air quality for local folks, and I just would urge you to oppose this location and revisit the entire selection process. But thank you.
Thank you for your input, Mr. Fischler. I think we'll get clarification shortly on how much authority or lack of authority we have in site selection. But moving on, I believe we now have Marion or Ms. Dombrowski available through audio because she's been having technical difficulties, but we certainly want to hear from you. Ms. Dombrowski, are you available?
I hope so. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank
Please.
you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your patience and for everybody's help. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Anacostia Watershed Community Advisory Committee. I'm not going to go into the details of who we are, except that many of our member organizations have worked for decades in the special conservation areas within and surrounding BARC. We oppose the allocation of federal property at BARC for uses unrelated to its mission, and we request location of the current seed production facility in a site in Prince George's County, an appropriate industrial area. There's a reason that there's a difference between the zoning category for farming and that for industrial uses. Anyway, let's see, locating a toxic industrial operation on protected and dangerously scarce farmland is a disaster in itself. The details revealed in the EIS are shocking. One of the many aberrant outcomes of approving this project is the location would place the largest contiguous green space in our county, considered the lungs of the Anacostia, in jeopardy. Our new congressman has recognized the opportunity to establish an agricultural and environmental research triangle housed at BARC, combining the resources of NASA Goddard, Howard University, University of Maryland, University of the District of Columbia, and the Patuxent Wildlife Research Center. This would create a resource invaluable to the nation. Unlike the Treasury's proposal, such a groundbreaking effort consistent with BARC's mission would produce a fertile incubator for Prince George's County's struggling small businesses in fields including agriculture and environmental health. The county's economic development strategic plan notes the fact that the county has not emerged as a leader despite the presence of these institutions and research facilities. Indeed, two of our major universities are land grant established to provide students with affordable access to career higher education in agriculture, science, and engineering. While promising jobs to our county, jobs already held by others, the proposed currency production facility and coattail projects will undermine the realization of BARC's potential as a stepping stone to economic prosperity for Prince George's County. The proposed currency production facility is a gateway project. It closes the door to innovative enterprises consistent with BARC's mission and opens the floodgate to inappropriate land use and destructive development. The EIS lists at least 40 projects under cumulative impacts, projects waiting in the wings to further degrade and hamstring BARC's wealth of resources and abundant opportunities. This would be imposed on a county built on agriculture, birthplace of low-impact development. Maryland's #1 industry is agriculture, generating 40% of our economy on the footsteps of the nation's capital. Project documentation indicates that the site selection was based on cost and convenience to the Treasury Department. It dismisses the cost of negative impacts to adjacent communities, the region, and the environment. This is the very definition of environmental injustice. We'll continue to work to protect BARC and support its mission in every way possible. We were successful in blocking the disposal of parcel 107 at NASA, another important resource in Maryland's targeted ecological area. President Biden has just appointed your new chair. Thank you so much for coming. You have the president's ear. We rely on planners. The commission is the premier planning body in the region to protect our most valuable resources and direct development towards a healthy and sustainable future. Please direct this concept to an appropriate just location, not BARC, so that the nation's premier agricultural research center can be preserved and supported to achieve the life-sustaining purpose for which it was established. Thank you so much for letting me speak and for your patience.
Thank you, Ms. Dombrowski, and we're very grateful for your remarks. And again, thank you for your generous welcome. Everything you've provided has been very good and useful information. I want to thank all the speakers today for participating, and this is what we need and what we're looking for as commissioners is for input like this. And I also want to note that Marianne Cantor from the Friends of the Beltsville Agricultural Research Center, the Maryland National Park and Planning Commission, Prince George's County, and the City of Greenbelt all provided comments which were distributed to the commission. Written versions of the testimony and the comments provided today were also provided and available through our website. So now I'd like to ask if BEP has any thoughts that they'd like to share that might help address the issues that have been raised by our citizen input. Perhaps Mr. Davis or Mr. Olear could make comment on some of these this public testimony. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Chair Goodman. So I would just like to start off, a lot of good feedback, and I would just like to say that, we've been working with the public stakeholders, both from the state, the county, local, even some of the civic associations for years on this project. I'm happy to say that we do have the support of the Vansville Heights Citizens Association, which represents the citizens immediately adjacent to this site. They are very supportive of this site. They've testified in the past at NCPC of their support. We also have the support of USDA BARC's leadership team. They recognize that BARC's mission has decreased over the years because a lot of the research, the traditional research that the government has done is now farmed out to the universities around the country. And so, we are redeveloping a site that has previous development on it. This is not virgin Greenland forest, and it has over 20 buildings on it that we currently are scheduled to begin demolition on. We also have the support of the Prince George's County Executive, as well as the state of Maryland and our federal delegation. So there are some good points brought up. We've touched on the wastewater. That was a direct result of working with our public stakeholders. We heard the concerns about Beaver Dam Creek, and so we are taking a look at other options. And so that will be reflected in the supplemental environmental analysis that'll be coming out towards the end of this year. On Ms. Fine's concerns about the birds, bird strikes and light. I think just taking a look at the presentation, there is no exposed glass on this building. It's all been wrapped with metal panels. So we are not going to have, or we are significantly decreasing the chances of accidental bird strikes. All of our lighting design is being designed for downlight so that we don't cause light pollution. And then I think we're very happy about our security. That was another item that our public stakeholders brought up, was our perimeter security fence. They didn't want this in, hey, we're a federal government, we're hiding behind a fence line, or we're going to be shining lights out. That was another item that we've worked a lot with our design team and our security folks to make sure that we don't become a nuisance, or we're not noticed by the residents to the north. And then finally, the transportation, we partnered with a lot of different organizations on the transportation impacts study that we conducted a few years back. And we have been working with Federal Highway, the county, state, to begin implementation of those recommended improvements. And so we are going to be beginning a conceptual design on that, which we will bring to the commission, we'll bring to the different stakeholders. But we feel that based on the TIS that we completed, that a lot of the concerns about offsite transportation impacts will be alleviated. We're actually improving what's there right now because most of those roads and intersections in that area are already failing. And so we are going to be improving them with our offsite roadway improvements, which our director even mentioned earlier on, that we just recently received congressional authority to fund those projects. So more to come on those. But needless to say, we feel like we're going to be making things better than they are currently. So any questions?
Are there additional questions for Mr. Davis from commissioners?
Yes.
Commissioner May?
Yeah. So I was a little puzzled by the statement that there is no glass in the building. I mean, in the presentation, there's an image of the building that seems to show, I don't know, 15 or 20 foot tall glass wall at the entry point. Is that incorrect? Is that not
so
glass?
The only place that you'll have exposed glass right now is the entryway, and that's a first floor area. All the other glass, all the other curtain wall on the south facing of the building has a metal panel over it, which
I understand that. I understand that. But you said there was no glass, and there is glass. It may not be very tall, but there's glass.
So the concern with bird strikes is anything up higher. We're not worried, you know, the design standards that we've been looking at are not.
I beg to differ. My office building got hit by a hawk at about 12 feet off the ground. So I think you should take this matter seriously. And as you said, it's not that difficult to do. I do have another question that didn't come up in the spoken testimony, but I thought I saw it in the written testimony, which was a concern about bats and whether you're taking that into consideration, particularly with the tree clearing. I know that's a big concern for us in the Park Service. It has the potential to severely restrict development in certain areas, depending on where bats are nesting. And the coming listing, like any day now, I think, of the northern long-eared bat is going to have a big effect. Are you looking at that? Do you know if there are any nesting sites? Have they been surveyed? How are you addressing the bat issue?
So oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Carrie.
Would you like me to handle that check?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Carrie Osgar, Army Corps of Engineers. BEP is aware of the scheduled reclassification for the northern long-eared bat from threatened to endanger. And we believe that effective date is supposed to be 31 March 2023. BEP completed coordination with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services under Section 7 of the Endangered Species Act during the EIS process, and BEP committed in the ROD to applying voluntary conservation measures to reduce potential impacts to the northern long-eared bat, as identified in the Northern Long-Eared Bat Programmatic Biological Opinion. These measures may include avoiding tree removal activities within the pups season, which is June 1st to July 31st. In light of this reclassification, BEP has reached out to re-engage with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services on the project in late January, and discussions with several members of the and we're continuing discussions with several members of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services Chesapeake Bay Field Office to keep up to date on what the changes may include.
Right. So effectively, you're going to have to go take a step back and renew the consulting that you had done before with Fish and Wildlife Service, because that's what we've had to do, right? So
we're waiting for their guidance.
Yeah.
Still, thank you.
Okay. And then one last question, which again was touched on somewhere in the transportation impacts, is trucks. And there's not a lot of information in our staff report about that. And I just think at final, it would be helpful to know the numbers of trucks, not the construction, but what happens once you're in operation, the daily truck trips, that kind of thing. And where they're going, how they're coming and going. I think we'll need to know that. I think,
We haven't done this.
sorry, I think we are interested in construction traffic as well, how that's going to occur, given the volume of trucks that were mentioned in the testimony. Thank you.
Yes, and Commissioner Hewlett, were you going to ask another question?
Well, I think Vice Chair Dixon had his hand up first, unless it's
I
not-
apologize. I did not see that. Vice Chair Dixon, can you please ask your questions?
Well, I'm going to pass and let the local folks speak to this, and our commission member, let me yield to her, please.
Okay, thank you. I do have a couple of questions. For one thing, and Mr. Olihar, please, I may or may not be pronouncing your name correctly, so please help me. Please tell me how I pronounce it. Is he still?
It is Oliar.
Oliar, okay. And
I'm Marty Greiner. I'm the Deputy Director and Chief Administrative Officer at the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. It appears Director Oliar might have gotten dropped off somehow.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. So here are my questions. Well, for him, and I hope you hear, and also Mr. Davis, but Mr. Oliar emphasized working with the community and being good neighbors. And this is really important because though you have the support of a number of people and a number of entities, you still have people with a lot of entities in the cities and municipalities with a lot of concerns. So for me, it's imperative that you continue to work with the community. One of the things that you said, transportation is an issue. And then that results in car pollution and whatnot. And because it's in Maryland and 60% of you indicated that 60% of your resident or your workers will come from Maryland, live in Maryland, 30% of which, half of that, which will be from Prince George's County, the Greenbelt Metro is not likely to be viable for some of them, for most of them, especially if they're coming from Upper Marlboro and places like that. That's not going to work. So the vans and the cars and the vans and carpooling are going to be critical. So please emphasize tremendously, if this passes, tremendously to work together on the carpooling. You also, and the bicycle and pedestrian pathways as well. Although the shuttle from the Greenbelt Metro will be important, and that's, we hope you continue with that as well. You've addressed the wastewater, and you've indicated that absolutely none will be going into Beaver Dam. That is critical, and I hope that's accurate as well. You said you're preserving 100% of the rainwater. You have a system in place to do that. You also, Ms. Free indicated that with you were losing 20 acres of trees there, but you're planting trees back again. And if you do that, and she said at maturity, there will be an increase. And no one indicated how much of an increase. Is it a small increase, a teeny increase? How much of an increase? I'd like to know an answer to that as well. I know you're aiming for LEED Silver. Given the environmental concerns, and I applaud you on the roofing too. That's very, very, very important. But given all the concerns that we've heard, I'm hoping that you can take it up a notch or two.
Well, I'm sort of going to put it in that is that we're.
Excuse me, Ms. Schuyler, if you.
I'm sorry.
Mute yourself. Thank you.
LEED Gold or even Platinum. I think our residents of Prince George's County, there's so many ramifications here. Why not give us more? Why not go for it? Why, we don't want to be shortchanged. And I do want to say this. I see you have input from the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. So most of us know that I just retired from the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. I want to state on the record that your comments from Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission are from December 2022. I retired before that. So there's no conflict of interest here on that. But the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission really strives for buildings to be, at least gold, a minimum silver, but, gold or platinum. And why should we have any less from the federal government? particularly at such a beautiful location as Bark. So I would invite you to go back and work harder on that as well. And, you know, we're hearing your comments that you're stating on the record. We take them to heart, and we hope you're very serious in following through with all of these. And also your shifts. You also mentioned teleworking, right? That was in the staff report. That's another way to deal with the traffic. So I hope, clearly not everybody can telework, but I hope you can maximize that to its full potential. Those are just some of the comments that I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hewlett. Commissioner Dixon, I apologize, I did not see your hand up. If you have a question you'd like to ask.
No problem. First of all, I'm more informed by the PG County representative, Commissioner speaking. I share all of her concerns. I also always am concerned about the home rule nature, that is the participation of local folks in projects. And there's always this, not in my backyard, there's always issues. But I feel that this project has had a lot of airing. And though the testimony of the witnesses has been very, very helpful in guiding for the future, I hope that there will be some mechanism, and kind of ask a question of the presenters, whether there is going to be a built-in mechanism for ongoing community participation in this particular project. I mean, not just the project, but the presence of this particular entity being in their community. And that's a question. And the last question would be, I'm always big on solar. Everybody knows I'm big on solar. I know that there's always a trade-off between green roofs and solar roofs. And I'm not sure how you make the distinction, but I'd like to know whether that had been explored in terms of getting more solar in to help carry some of the electrical issues we have. Thank you, and I'll wait for answers, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Dixon. Are there any other questions from commissioners? Hearing none.
There's a hand raised.
Oh dear, I'm looking for a hand. Thank you for your help with that. Yes, Mr. Brightnother from U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Would you like to contribute something?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Yes, good afternoon. My name is Matt Brightnother. I'm with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I'm a design manager for the team. I believe Commissioner May is the individual who brought up earlier the discrepancy or question on DC Water and the WSSC relationship. I just wanted you to know that got confirmation that our proposed connection to WSSC does in fact discharge down to Blue Plains. And from what I understand, WSSC and DC Water have a written agreement titled the 2012 Intra-Municipal Agreement. Those are the details that I could share with you at this moment. Thank you.
And thank you for your contributions, Mr. Brightnother. Well, hearing no further questions, are there other questions or comments from commissioners? Hearing no other questions or comments, it's become clear that there has to be additional research done on the original question that was posed to Ms. Schuyler. And so I would like to entertain a motion to forego. Yes,
Chair Goodman, perhaps we would just like to have General Counsel Schuyler report back on what she has. And then we will, I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
And then we'll go from there.
Very good. Well, is Ms. Schuyler, are you prepared to update us at this point?
Yes and no. And isn't that a classic legal answer? I think I am confused, and I am confused because it's my understanding that our applicant has always used the phrase authorized and directed an interagency transfer. And I think that may, based on what I've seen in the Farm Bill, I'm not sure I would agree with that phraseology. So I might be inclined to ask if someone from Treasury can respond on where there's some other additional directives given to Treasury about this transaction, transfer of jurisdiction, of which we should be aware.
And thank you. And we do not have anyone present today from Treasury, so I am going to assume.
Well,
that-
but maybe I misspoke. Maybe if, and maybe Diane can chime in here. I thought, maybe that's how the applicant I'm getting my parties confused. That's how the applicant, which is, Diane, are you?
Or someone from the Bureau of Engraving and Printing.
Yeah, that would do. Yes.
Do we have anyone here from BEP who can comment on the representation of the decision for site location?
I think we would prefer to have our lawyer, and who is not present today, comment on that, since we are talking about a very legal issue. So we would want our lawyer, our chief counsel, to engage in that discussion.
Thank you so much, Ms. Greiner. Well, hearing this, then I would like to suggest that I would entertain a motion to table this discussion and forego commissioner response until next month. Because of this uncertainty. So if a motion to table does not require discussion, it requires a motion and a second. And
Yes, if I could just interject, I think what we actually want, and I misspoke to you, Chair, is a motion to postpone until the next meeting, the April Commission meeting, pending a report from our general counsel with whatever input from BEP can provide. And we would do that now as a motion, second, and vote. And then when we returned in April, we would move and second the underlying action, and then hear the report, and then proceed with commission deliberations.
I have a question. So
Me too.
Being new to the commission, normally where I came from, if we continued or postponed to another date, this record, we're not starting from scratch all over again.
Correct.
We have the testimony. Okay, thank you. Okay.
That is correct.
But
we would not entertain additional testimony at the next meeting. That has already been provided, other than the reports as specified from our council.
thank you, Commissioner Hewlett and Ms. Coster. And Commissioner Wright.
Yeah, I'd like to just put some texture into this inquiry, because we've seen a number of site selection processes of late that lack sufficient influence exercised by this commission. And I would like the inquiry into how this happened and how it made it into the Farm Bill. We're told that there was this expansive selection process, and over 80 sites were looked at and winnowed down, to this and that and this, and we're getting conflicting testimony as to who knew and when they knew it, what they knew and when they knew it. But it's just a startling turn of events to have Congress order, direct and authorize, whatever the language is, without the participation of the federal planning agency. Or and I'd like to understand how could that be, that there's no participation by NCPC, that then an EIS gets done with a build or no build alternative in one location, which smacks of pre-decisional activity. The whole thing just doesn't add up. And I'd like to verify that the local planning agency was involved or not. I just don't understand how this can happen. Why bother to have a federal planning agency if they're not going to be consulted at all, even as a courtesy? in the stages before it gets to a congressional action which authorizes and directs. I just think that we would be remiss as a commission if we don't ask some very detailed questions and ask for to understand thoroughly how this came about. Because what I was going to say in my comments when we got there was, you know, the design team has done an admirable job of trying to make this building disappear, but no amount of design is gonna make this right. And it is a darn shame. And I can't help but think it was a decision that was not fully informed by professional planners who would have weighed in mightily about the ill-advised location of this facility on the Bark.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. Are there, yes, I see Commissioner May has a comment.
Yeah, I agree largely with what Commissioner Wright has had to say. I will say that in the past, I have, in past reviews, I haven't been as concerned about the site, but I have been very concerned about the process by which this happened. I mean, it's a very difficult building to site. And so I can understand why, you know, you start out with 80 and you wind up with very few in the end, but the fact that NCPC was not part of that process as the federal planning agency is really problematic. And as Commissioner Wright herself knows, I am very concerned about site selection for federal agencies because sometimes they wind up in the wrong place and we all wind up paying the consequences for that afterwards. I won't go into the specifics of what that project refers to, but she knows. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner May. And I see Commissioner Linda Argo has a comment.
Yeah, I just want to, I'm having a little trouble with my video, but can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
I just want to identify with the comments made by Commissioner Wright and Commissioner May. I think I mean, I hate to use the very overused term, but the process itself that has gotten us here seems flawed. It makes me somewhat hesitant even in my, you know, in my input through a vote on this project. I'm not sure how we deal with that procedurally at this point. I'll leave that up to the folks that know how to do that better than I do.
Right. And Commissioner Argo, thank you for that, posing that question. And I think what I'm asking for is the chair is a motion to table. It requires a vote, no further discussion of this particular project until we have the information that has been requested, and that will be provided if the motion includes a date certain of tabling it until the April commission meeting. Then there would be further reporting out at that time by staff, but not repeating all the testimony. We would still have that, but the motion would be to table until April 6th. So I would entertain that motion. But you had your hand up again, Commissioner Argo. Do you have something else you wanted to say?
No.
Okay.
I can't get my hand down. Thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'd entertain a motion to table this until the April 6th meeting and until we get the information that's been requested.
Madam Chair, I move that we postpone action on this item until the April 6th meeting, pending the outcome of the questions that were asked.
I'll second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. I'll refer this back to Ms. Coster.
Thank you. The motion to postpone until the April 6th meeting pending a report from our general counsel was made by Commissioner Hewlett and seconded by Commissioner Argo. And with that, Commissioner Cozart?
Yes.
Commissioner McMahon?
Yes.
Commissioner May?
Yes.
Commissioner Argo?
Yes.
Commissioner Hewlett?
Yes.
Chair Goodman,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright.
Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Dixon
Yes.
and Commissioner Davis.
Yes.
Thank you. I believe the motion has passed.
Thank you, Ms. Coster, and thanks to staff for assisting with that, and for all of those who shared testimony today and all of the officials who provided more information. And yes, Commissioner Wright.
I would also ask that the findings be distributed to us well in advance, so that we can really understand it fully. It's very important that we ask the right questions. I think we've all been sort of the mind, well, that ship has sailed because Congress said so. But I think even if we find that this cruise ship is unstoppable, it's very important to understand how it happened so we can make moves to see that it never happens again. And if that includes changes to NCPC's authorities, I think it's really, particularly given our conversation last month about demolition, perhaps it's time to revisit the commission's authorities, because if it does turn out to be out of the realm of our ability to change, because this is textbook what should not happen.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. And moving on, the motion has carried. We will have this subject tabled through next meeting, April 6th. Agenda, and thank you all. Agenda item 6B is a request to accept the final Monumental Core Streetscape Design Guidelines of Vertical and Surface Elements. Mr. John Watt is going to be presenting. Thank you.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Jeff.
Right, perfect. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chair Goodman and Commission members. For the Monumental Core Streetscape project, I'm presenting the design guideline for vertical and surface elements. And today we request Commission acceptance of the guideline. I will start off with a brief recap of the project, including the urban design framework, and then present the vertical and surface element streetscape guideline, both of which have several components. For each component, there's a set of principles. The principles are summarized in attachment 1 in your meeting packet. I will wrap up the presentation with how the guidelines will be used and next steps. To help refresh the memory and for the benefit of the new commissioner, I will start with recapping the purpose and background of the Streetscape Manual. The manual was first created in 1992 and consists of construction detail and specification. There was a minor amendment in 2013. The agency used its technical document to achieve a coordinated and consistent streetscape for roadway in the central area of the city and in the vicinity of the National Mall. In fact, the manual was used on 25 capital improvement projects between 1992 and 2012. And today, the manual is now 30 years old. A comprehensive update is needed to reflect current best practices in urban design, city planning, and landscape architecture. In 2018, we began the guideline update to achieve higher quality streetscape, as shown here in the photos, and to improve connection and relationship between the monumental core and surrounding neighborhood. The update includes best environmental practices like stormwater management, and emerging technology like micromobility and EV charging station. The new manual will be used by agencies to plan, develop, and coordinate streetscape projects. NCPC and CFA staff use the manual during project review. NCPC is leading this update in collaboration with the Interagency Working Group, comprising 11 federal and local agencies listed here on the left. We also received extensive input from agency experts, including arborists, preservationists, and landscape architects. This collaboration has been valuable to ensure that the guideline meets the goals of the manual. And as a reminder, the project has 4 phases. Phase 1 included the urban design framework and lighting policy, which the Commission saw in 2018 and 2019. The Commission directed staff to use the framework as the foundation to develop the Streetscape Design Guideline and Construction Manual update. And we are here today to talk about Phase 2, the design guideline for the vertical and surface elements. In 2022, the Commission released draft guideline for public comments, and staff hosted 2 public meetings. We received comments from CFA, interest group, and individuals. Staff addressed the comments and incorporate them in the final guidelines in front of you today. The comments are summarized in attachment 2 in the meeting packet. And at the next meeting in April, we'll be back to review the small-scale elements, which I will preview at the end of the presentation. In the meantime, we are also working on Phase 3 to update the construction detail and specification. When that's complete, we will update the Memorandum of Understanding to formalize how the agency will continue to collaborate. But before getting into the guideline, it's important to recap the urban design framework, which provides an organizing principle for guideline development. This framework map from 2019 shows the expanded manual boundary and 3 distinct street categories, which I will elaborate on the next slide. We have the radiating and edging street shown in hot pink, the connecting and traversing street in pale pink, and local street in white. The radiating and edging street, again in hot pink, have national importance and symbolic meaning. They radiate from or run along the edge of national landmarks and open spaces. For example, Pennsylvania Avenue is a radiating street, and Constitution Avenue is an edging street. And in pale pink, the connecting and traversing street have national and local importance. 7th Street, which run across downtown, Chinatown, and National Mall, falls into this category. Then we have local street in white that make up the city grid and serve as a functional network for the district. All 3 street categories I described contain a range of streetscape elements, including streetlights, tree, benches, bike rack, and pavement. We organize this element into 3 groups: vertical, surface, small-scale elements. Again, vertical and surface elements are the focus of today's presentation. And it's important to note that the guidelines only apply to public space from the property line to the curb, and only when there is a major site redevelopment project or a capital improvement project. The guidelines are not applicable to routine maintenance or repair. I mentioned earlier that the purpose of the manual is to achieve consistency in streetscape. Here you have the degree of consistency can vary based on the street category shown on the left and the type of streetscape element on the right. For example, streetscape elements on radiating and edging street should be more consistent than local street. Also, street trees and lights along any street should have the highest degree of consistency because they are the most visible and help shape the streetscape corridor. Before we get into the guideline for the vertical elements, I want to take a moment to explain how we organize the final guidelines document. This document is provided as a separate file in your meeting packet. Here I included the cover page and table of contents. This is an example of the general layout and organization of the guideline. On the left, we have the type of element, its component, and the topics. In a moment, I will reference the principle, guideline numbers, and call out boxes. Also, because there are multiple components and topics that contain a lot of information, I'm going to present each one using the same structure. First, I will summarize the high-level guiding principle that we presented to the Commission in 2022. Then I will recap the existing condition and current guidance from the 1992 manual. I will then show the proposed guidance in the manual update, And finally, I will describe how we address public comments in the revision. I'll note here that with the exception of the last bullet, the Commission has seen this content before. So let's start with the vertical elements, which have two components, streetlights and trees. Together, they help shape streetscape corridor and frame important views. Streetlights are important because they contribute to the character of the capital city, historic district, and cultural landscape. They strengthen important views, support streetscape consistency, reinforce unique precinct, and improve relationship between Monumental core and the surrounding neighborhood. There are two topics under streetlights, the fixture and the National Mall crosswalk lighting. For the manual update, the guiding principles support using streetlight to express the dignity of the nation's capital and to provide nighttime illumination for safety, ambience, and character. For the existing condition, you see an assortment of streetlight style around the Monumental core. We have everything from Washington Globe and Twin 20 that are ubiquitous around DC to special style lighting on Lafont Promenade, and older style at the Capitol complex. But despite a variety of style, the current manual only provides guidance for Twin 20, Washington Globe, and Olmsted lights as shown on the map. In contrast, the proposed guidance is more nuanced, capturing not only the range of styles, but also the height and placement of streetlight. The second topic includes recommendations that support the district Vision Zero goals and address concern about inadequate lighting on the National Mall crosswalk. There were no substantial revision on the draft guideline that we presented to the Commission in 2022. The second component under the vertical elements is the street tree guideline, which covered 5 topics. Street trees are important because they support ecological function, improve pedestrian comfort, and enhance streetscape aesthetic. I'm going to highlight 2 topic areas, tree planting and tree box treatment. For the manual update, the guideline principles support environmental, aesthetic, and public health benefit of trees. Under tree planting topic, the current guidance only addresses 1 tree species, the American elm, on the blue street shown on the map. However, our understanding of arboriculture practices have evolved in the past 30 years to include biodiversity in tree species and resilience to pests and diseases. The proposed guidance promotes using different tree forms, as shown in the legend, to frame important view corridor. By focusing on tree form instead of tree species, we can achieve consistent streetscape character and expand the palette beyond the American elm. The proposed guidance also limits the American elm to National Mall, shown in light blue, where historic preservation is a critical factor. For tree box treatment topic, the current guidance neither addresses stormwater management nor areas with high pedestrian foot traffic. The proposed guidance now addresses stormwater management through both bioretention and non-bioretention tree boxes. It also provides several tree box options to ensure visual compatibility based on the landscape character and pedestrian volume. For the revision, CFA wanted to highlight how the guidelines support socially oriented design that create a comfortable, welcoming, and functional streetscape. We address CFA comment by adding a call-out box to emphasize the guideline that achieve this important attribute. To address other public comments, we added new guidelines to encourage seating in shaded areas and to consider the impact of root growth on the sidewalk and trails. Moving on to the guideline on surface elements. Surface elements have 4 components: landscape and plantings, stormwater management, pavement, and pedestrian circulation. Together, they enhance vista and contribute to the streetscape character. Landscape and planting provide environmental benefit and unify streetscape character. We organize the guideline into 5 topics, and I will provide a high-level summary of a couple of them. For the manual update, we introduce the guideline principle that support enhancing streetscape landscape and green spaces, improving soil for healthy trees and vegetation, and promoting native and pollinator-friendly plants. The current landscape guidance only addresses mulch and turf grass, which is limiting and inadequate. On the other hand, the proposed manual update includes an appendix with an extensive planting palette. The proposed guidance also builds upon the urban design framework by identifying vegetation height based on street categories. In general, vegetation should be shorter on radiating and edging street, shown in hot pink, to emphasize the view corridors. Along connecting and traversing street, shown in pale pink, landscape plantings can be taller. And to address public comments, the revision addressed improving environmental practices by using a greater diversity of planting to support pollinators like the monarch butterflies. Next, I will cover stormwater management, which is important because it improves environmental quality, filters pollutants, and reduces the strain on existing infrastructure. Stormwater management can also help mitigate flooding in the Monumental Core. And we organize the guideline into 4 topics, and I'm going to highlight a few of them. For the manual update, the guideline principles support using best practice to address flooding and water quality issues, protecting the historic and cultural resources, and ensuring proper maintenance of stormwater facility. The guideline also expand upon the compliance policies and coordinate with federal and local stormwater regulation. As you know, the Monumental Core is prone to flooding. When we presented draft guideline to CFA, the Commission recommended that we highlight how we address this environmental issue, including the impacts of extreme weather and flooding. The current guidance from 1992 only addresses gray infrastructure, including catch basin and inlets. It does not provide guidance on current best practices like green infrastructure solution. The proposed guidance identifies optimal location for stormwater management based on urban design principles and curbside use of the sidewalk. Here on the left in the green box, the guideline encourages stormwater management strategy, including bioswale and bioretention. And on the right in the red box, the guideline discourages stormwater management in certain areas due to visual, historic preservation, and functional reasons. For example, limiting bioswale on the street crossing National Mall and at location with high pedestrian volume. To address public comments, the revision includes highlighting how to address green infrastructure maintenance and consider best practices for universal accessibility. Moving on to pavement guidelines, which contribute to the streetscape character and facilitate pedestrian circulation. We organize this guideline into 4 topics, and I'm going to highlight the second topic on pavement material. For the manual update, the guideline principle focus on unifying pavement character, enabling comfortable movement, simplifying material transition, and improving environmental condition. Walking around the Monumental Core, you may notice the existing condition with multiple sidewalk material and pavement type, including red brick, London paver, and concrete, as shown on the map. However, the current guidance only addresses exposed aggregate, granite curb, and gutter on the street highlighted in green. In the proposed guidance, we address every street in the Monumental Core and capture a more diverse palette of materials. For example, using exposed aggregate shown on the map in gold color on most streets within the Monumental Core and using custom paper shown in burgundy on special locations like the White House and La Fong Promenade. And to address public comments, the revision addressed curb ramp details, protecting historic view when designing bike lane to enhance safety and universal accessibility. And finally, the last component is the pedestrian circulation guideline, which addresses the space for pedestrian movement. We organized this guideline into 5 topics, and I'm going to highlight just a few of them. For the manual update, the guideline principles support the following: enhancing circulation routes to facilitate pedestrian movement, providing access to unique destinations, ensuring consistent alignment and adequate size of pedestrian space, and coordinating pedestrian spaces with other zone and travel mode. I want to note here that the manual update only focused on pedestrian circulation within the sidewalk space. The manual does not address curbside management and transportation because they are outside of the purview of the Streetscape project. Here, the current guidance addresses roadway classification and pedestrian ways as shown on the map. However, it does not provide information on the minimum space needed for pedestrian and how transportation mode interface with pedestrian space. For the update, the working group made sure that the proposed guidance identify the minimum width for sidewalk as shown on the left legend, and the multi-use trail in dark blue, and restricted access roadway in dashed black and green. To address public comments, the revisions support a continuous pedestrian access along the waterfront and highlight how different streetscape elements work together to enhance pedestrian safety and accessibility. Also, to reinforce that there are limitations on vending and parking within the National Mall area. This concludes the summary of the final vertical and surface element guideline. I will now explain how the guideline will be used. The manual will be used by agency to plan, develop, and coordinate streetscape projects to achieve consistency across multiple jurisdictions. NCPC will use the manual during project review and to inform policy when updating the comp plan. Using the new manual to coordinate streetscape improvement will ensure that the public space within the Monumental core is beautiful, inviting, and functional. To illustrate the manual's application, I want to provide 2 examples. Here, Constitution Avenue as a radiating and edging street would have a double row of trees in spreading form, twin 20 street lights, and a unified planting and surface materials. Another example is the 12th Street. As a connecting and traversing street, it will have a single row of tree in round shape, Washington globe lights, and a unified planting and surface materials. Looking ahead to the future phases of work for the Streetscape project. As I mentioned at the beginning, we'll come back in April to look at the small scale elements and to release the draft guideline for a 60-day public comments. We will also host 2 public meetings in spring. And later this year, we'll request Commission acceptance of the final small-scale guidelines. Upon completion, we'll bundle the vertical, surface, and small-scale guideline into one comprehensive package. And this will wrap up phase 2 of the project. Here's a preview of the small-scale elements. They include 2 components, street furnishing and civic infrastructure. Street furnishing include 2 topics, benches and receptacles. Civic infrastructure had several topics, including bike racks, fire hydrant, EV charging station, parking pay station, and utility boxes. Again, we will present this next month. In conclusion, the Executive Director recommends the Commission to accept the vertical and surface element guideline pursuant to NCPC Planning Authority. Find that the guidelines are consistent with the comp plan and build upon the urban design streetscape framework. commend the interagency working group for its collaboration, encourage the working group to begin using the guideline for project planning, design, construction, and review. Direct staff to use the guideline to inform construction manual update in phase 3. And note that once accepted by the commission, staff will incorporate any changes as directed and will finalize the respective text and graphic. This concludes my presentation, and I will stay on for questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. John Watt. That was a very thorough presentation and very helpful. And now, do the commissioners have any questions about the presentation content? Yes, Commissioner Wright? You're on mute, Amina.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I want to make sure that I understand this because we've seen this a number of times and the content, I think, is very good. So my question has more to do with implementation. So if I understood correctly, the guidelines, since they're guidelines and not compulsory, I get that it's advisory, you're not making anyone do it. But so if I have a project, let's just say at USDA Witten on the mall, which falls squarely into the boundaries, and I don't follow the guidelines, I can expect when I get to the commission for review of a project that the staff will recommend or the EDR will basically say, this project runs afoul of the guidelines. Will it be used as a decision or matrix or established criteria for evaluation is my question.
Mr. John?
Yeah, I'll help with that one. So can you all see, this is Beth, can you see me in here?
Yeah.
Yes, as you're absolutely right, these are not compulsory. They are guidelines. We will work with the interagency working group amongst ourselves to coordinate. And when they do come to the commission, they will be reviews to evaluate. And we'll be able to give the commission input on what we think it should be. And then you can make the decision on if it should happen.
So it has passive teeth.
Yes.
Okay, good. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. And my second question is, because it's been a lot of work, and if they didn't have any teeth, that would kind of be discouraging. And then the second question is, how will you get the finished product into the hands of the people who need it?
So I'll take that one too, Jeff. So what our plan is when we wrap up the small scale guidelines, we will package it. And then we're actually going to do an outreach to all of the respective agencies to do a briefing, kind of an education bit, go over the manual. And so that will be part of our effort to inform everyone that it exists and how it can be used. And it will be packaged, it'll be electronic. We'll provide it to all the agencies and it will be posted on our website.
Okay, third question, because I wasn't clear, is there a plan to include 5G apparati? Is that a plural? Whatever, you know what I'm talking about. The vaults and the poles and all this stuff. Are you going to get to that eventually?
Yeah, Jeff, do you want to? I'll let you take that one.
Yes, so 5G fall into the small scale element, but they are being addressed separately. And I think Diane is leading that effort.
I thought that's what I heard you say, but I wasn't sure. Okay, thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. Are there any other commissioners with questions? I do not see any hands up. I see Commissioner Hewlett. Yes. Do you have a question?
My hand is not up, but I just think it was a great presentation, and I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you.
Thank you.
Well, and that if there are no further questions, then I would entertain a motion to accept the final Monumental Core Streetscape Design Guidelines and the Executive Director's recommendation. for
I have a
vertical and
question. I
surface
would like
elements.
to also move that it be accepted.
And I
Oh.
will second it.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
great.
want to say, first of all, I want to speak to it a little bit. I think excellent presentation. I do have some questions, and I guess maybe this is the time to do that, Madam Chair, or not?
Yes, we can have questions now.
Okay. I'm concerned and have been about the electric charging stations, which are part of this discussion. Whether there's going to be any standardization of the plugs that go into cars. I'm hoping that at the national level, there'll be some effort to standardize these, because many chargers, I have an electric car with chargers, and it doesn't, oftentimes the plugs don't fit it. And there's some effort by certain vendors to make their plugs the only ones that are available, which pushes you to their vehicle. But anyway, that's one question. And maybe he can speak to that. Maybe. Is that possible?
Yes,
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
I can tackle that one first. So the EV charging station also falls into the small scale element, and we have been working very closely with DDOT division for the EV charging station to look at the draft guidelines. So we have engaged through the interagency working group to develop the working guideline. I also want to point out that EV charging station is a live topic, and I do feel like every day we have new information on how many stations are being installed around the country. And every jurisdiction around the country are trying to wrap their head around this issue as well.
Yeah. Well, I just know that there's a lot of conversation about the rollout of all these stations, but we need now to have some standardization. I mean, when you move from house to house in the United States, not internationally, but you plug in an electrical plug, you had 3 prongs now, and that's sort of building requirements. But there is no, and it's easy for the federal government to say, look, you've got to standardize these things, because there's got to be a way to do that. Also, I'm also concerned the bikes and other vehicles that move through the streets now, scooters, et cetera, have got to be looked at in terms of the effect on the flow of the sidewalks, et cetera. And I'm sure that you all are including that in your work.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yes, the pedestrian circulation topic address how the pedestrian movement and how the micromobility and bicycle interface with pedestrian.
Okay, I'm very excited about this. I just hope that it will also give some guidance and direction to the local community, so that this doesn't end within the area, because it's I think, very appropriate. The lighting consistency, the type of bulbs consistency is very important. Thank you for your work, and I'm looking forward to more results from your effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Dixon, for your comments, and we'll continue to go around the table here and ask for comments from the commissioners before we take a vote on the motion. I know Commissioner Wright, you made some comments. Do you have any further comments or discussion that you'd like to drive for this particular motion?
No, I don't. I mean, we've seen this a number of times, and I think the content's very good.
Okay. Good. All right. Commissioner Davis.
No questions from me. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Cozart.
No questions, but just a comment. Thank you so much to the staff. This has been a big lift, very collaborative. Our office has spent a lot of time working with you all. So thank you so much, and appreciate the great presentation and the great work.
Thanks to your staff as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Cozart. Commissioner McMahon.
Yeah, thanks. Only comment again, it's great work on the staff's part. Very well defined report, and highlighted a lot of good issues to work on in the future. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Commissioner May.
Yeah, I ran this by our staff who've been working directly with NCPC and others on it, and only had compliments back, which is really good. You know, we often have issues, but we did. So we appreciate all the good work that everyone has done. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner May. Commissioner Argo.
I don't have any additional comments or questions. Really appreciate the work that's been done on this. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Argo. Commissioner Hewlett. Commissioner Hewlett. I'm going to move on to Commissioner Green and we'll get back to Betty.
Thank you. No, I wanted to thank staff for this. I really appreciate the granular detail, granular attention to detail, because while we often talk about these big picture moves, I mean, it's these fine grained moves that's so much about how people experience the city and how they move through it and what they take away. And so I just really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Commissioner Green. Commissioner Hewlett, are you back? You must have had some business to step away from the meeting for a moment. So I will say that I'm just incredibly grateful to the staff on a lot of different levels, but I thoroughly enjoyed the briefing that I received from Jeff and Beth on this particular project and of the NCPC. I found it very thorough. I was very impressed with the collaborative work that's gone on between the district, the National Park Service, the GSA, and the thoughtful detail that's been provided. And hopefully it will have more than soft teeth as it's disseminated amongst the public and the different jurisdictions. So I just appreciate this important work that you've done. And I just want to give Betty a chance if she's back, if Commissioner Hewlett is back, and if not, oh, you are back. Okay, there you are, Betty. Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Hewlett. Do you have any comments on this or question?
I didn't hear the question because I had a
We're
buffer issue.
I'm sorry, we were just commenting on the presentation. We're just giving the round robin comment on the presentation that we had.
I gave my comment. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, very good. All right, great. Well, hearing no further discussion or comment, I'd like to ask Ms. Coster to call the roll, to repeat the motion in the second and call the roll, please.
Certainly. Commissioner Dixon made a motion to accept the final Monumental Core Streetscape Design Guidelines, Vertical and Surface Elements. It was seconded by Commissioner Hewlett. And with that, Commissioner Kozar?
Yes.
Commissioner McMahon?
Yes.
Commissioner May?
Yes.
Commissioner Argo?
Yes.
Commissioner Hewlett?
Yes.
Chair Goodman?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Commissioner Dixon?
I'm going to say yes, but I want to make 2 points. One, I'm hoping this will bleed obviously into the Pennsylvania Avenue development plan we're working on because it's very connected. And I'm always want to comment on this street furniture that can replace the ballots that we always use for security. If there's some way we can give folks a place to sit down, relax, and enjoy shade in these streets. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Dixon. Commissioner Davis?
Abstain.
Thank you. The motion has carried.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Ms. Coster. I appreciate it. And so now we have our final 2 information presentations, and I'd like to start with the Armed Forces Retirement Home. Ms. Herr, can you begin, please?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. All right. Good afternoon, Chair Goodman and members of the Commission. Today, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the Armed Forces Retirement Home Master Plan and its history before turning it over to the representatives from the home to provide you with additional information on their community outreach efforts. The purpose of this presentation is to give a quick update on the progress of their community engagement by the home, not the details of that process as it is ongoing. We recognize that an information presentation does not have public testimony. However, there will be time for public testimony in the future when AFRH has amendments to its campus reviewed by the Commission. The Armed Forces Retirement Home, or AFRH, is located in Northwest DC at the intersection of North Capitol Street and Irving Streets Northwest. The home is approximately 272 acres in total, with more than 100 buildings and structures that support AFRH operations. About 600 eligible retired and former members of the armed services live on the campus and are provided a range of support services and amenities. AFRH is a non-appropriated federal agency, meaning they do not get federal funding from Congress and rely on their own sources of revenue. Congress authorized AFRH to enter into a long-term lease agreement with a developer to redevelop a portion of the campus for private development to supplement their revenue. The previously approved master plan amendment addressed this private development. AFRH has the Washington Hospital Center complex to the south, including the Veterans Hospital and the McMillan site further south. To the east is Catholic University and the Brookline Metro Station. North are 2 cemeteries, and to the west are residential neighborhoods. The existing campus has a variety of spaces and buildings, including the Lincoln Cottage and Visitor Center, residential housing, maintenance facilities, and historic facilities that are currently vacant. The site also includes extensive open spaces and a golf course. This is just a high-level timeline showing the history of the master plan that includes the prior NCPC approvals for the original master plan in 2008, Amendment number 1 in 2018, and Amendment number 2 that was approved last June. I've also noted that in July of 2020, NCPC, the DC Office of Planning, and AFRH signed an MOU outlining the review process for this unique site. Per the MOU, NCPC and the Commission reviewed and approved the master plan update. After that approval, AFRH is working with the District Office of Planning to implement zoning in accordance with the master plan. Once the zoning is in place, AFRH can move forward with construction. This MOU does not apply to the AFRH zone noted here. That area will continue to follow a typical NCPC federal review process. During the approval of the 2022 master plan amendment, several area residents expressed concerns that the applicant hadn't sufficiently coordinated with them or addressed their concerns, specifically regarding access to open space and the future development. The executive director's report included a recommendation from the Commission that AFRH re-engage with NCPC staff, the District of Columbia Office of Planning, the National Park Service, and the community to evaluate the feasibility of possible public access through the western portion of the AFRH zone, golf course, and open space as part of a future AFRH submission for the golf course and open space. In addition, the former chair of the Commission requested that AFRH come back to the Commission in 6 months with an update on the progress of their community engagement. Now I would like to turn it over to General Rippey of the Armed Forces Retirement Home to give an update and introduce his team. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie, and thanks, Madam Chair and Commissioners. You're looking at the team here today. The issue at the June hearing was really one, not of the eastern development, which is essentially going to be a new DC community on federal property with a 20-acre park open to everyone. It was on access to the western side of our property. So I want to hit 3 high-level issues that summarize my slide presentation. 1, I'm going to talk about security. 2, I want to talk about the DC ruling and why we closed the gates, because there's a lot of misconceptions out there. And then finally, I want to talk about our current community access. So let's talk about security. This is not 1955. This is a very, very dangerous place, the world today, and we're very concerned about our residents' age and what might happen if we open the gates. The other point I want to make is we're a federal installation. We are much more open than other federal installations. And I could argue, and I think you would probably agree, that our residents in our retirement community should be just as safe as residents living on Fort Myer. So I'm going through the Fort Myer gate 2 months ago, and the guard stops me and says, your wife's ID card is expired. He confiscated her ID card and said, ma'am, you cannot come on the base today. And I said, wait, I'm just going to the commissary. Can't she come with me? He said, no, sir, she cannot. She's been my wife for 20 years. I'm a retired general officer, so I couldn't bring her on that day, and then I had to get a special piece of paper permission to take her from the gate to the ID center 3 weeks later to get her ID card. So that's the state of security on federal installations, and we are a federal installation. So the DC ruling, 1951, the DC opinion halted MPD patrols and jurisdiction on our property. Traffic really became a safety issue. Cars were going too fast, et cetera, et cetera. So in 1953, there was an attempt by the leadership to curb access. And finally, in 1955, as a traffic safety issue, the gates were closed. It had nothing to do with race relations, which we hear all the time. It was basically a traffic safety issue. So that's why we closed the gates in 1955. Now, let me talk about our current community access. We have initiated a walking program. It began before COVID, was suspended during COVID because we had now allowed no visitors on campus, not even for residents. And we offered 150 families walking permits to come on our property and with their dogs on leashes. 37 have taken us up on that offer, and we've only had 19 on the campus this year. So from where I sit, I think we're pretty open, and people haven't taken us up on it. President's Lincoln Cottage. It's a national monument. It's on AFRH property. We have a memorandum of agreement with them. They have 35,000 visitors a year and numerous monthly events geared toward bringing community members in. We have Creative Minds International on the campus. It's a DC charter school, 600 plus students pre-K through 8th grade with all of the associated activities you would expect a school like that to have. Golf course, this year we had 100 plus community members that could come on property and play golf on a golf course. In fact, one day last summer, and this won't happen anywhere else, I'm on the property and I see on one of the holes a family of 10 having a great time and playing golf. I don't know a golf course anywhere where you can have a tensome. Our residents have numerous activities that engage and bring in outside groups. 4th of July, we open the gates. We have all of our security folks on duty. The non-vets come to help with security, and we open it to the neighborhood. We have numerous food trucks, and I don't know, 1,000 plus community members. And the Friends of the Old Soldiers Home runs this. They do a great job. We have bouncy houses and all kinds of stuff going on. Kids are running around on our driving range. Because of our elevation, we have a great view of the Washington fireworks display. So we need to keep talking to the community. I hope you understand now why the security is an issue, and the fact that from where I sit as a CEO, we're pretty open to the community. And if they filled up the 150 family walking tour spots, we would probably be inclined to increase that, but we have only had 37 takers to date. So finally, I refer to the last slide on the next steps, and for sure, general community engagement. And by the end of this year, we want to determine the direction of the golf course. And again, this golf course, we visualize not only as a resource for our residents and community, but it's also a key rehabilitation facility. And there's a lot of things golf courses are doing now, like, you know, you throw the golf ball and those kind of things that older people can do. Our average age is 83. And we want to issue some kind of a golf course solicitation in a negotiation in 2024. And our pledge to the community groups was we would keep them well in the loop on that. That's all I have today, Madam Chairman.
Well, thank you. Thank you very, very much. It was very helpful, Ms. Herr and General Rippey. Thank you for that presentation. And now I'd like to ask if the commissioners have any questions for our presenters today.
I do, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Dixon.
Commissioner
Commissioner
Dixon. Yes.
Yeah. First of all, General, thank you for your presentation. As an 06 retired Army and Air Force Airman second class with honorable discharge, I have two involvements. I want to know more about the golf course because I have you played on it a couple of times. I enjoyed it, and I know it's been needing repair and been sort of dormant a little bit off and on because of the work you're doing. Would like maybe you could tell me about that. Also, I'm interested in. I have a lot of veterans I know, and some of them may be qualified, but I'd like to now, after off record, have some advice on how we can get them to give them an opportunity if they qualify. And lastly,
call me. We've done a lot to open up eligibility, so let's
Right.
you and I have another conversation tomorrow or Monday. Let's have a phone conversation. I'll fill you in on that.
all right, that would be great. And lastly, I've always been troubled by your funding. I was troubled that you had to look to the developers, but that probably is good for all of our communities that you did this. But I just think that there ought to be more sustained funding for you. Now it comes from military officers, military folk giving donations to it. Is that still the vehicle?
Every active duty military member gives us 50 cents a month. That's about $7 million a year. We get all the fines and forfeitures from the military. That's about $21 million a year. We charge the VA hospital and MedStar for parking. That was zero when I got here. It's now $1.5 million a year.
Yeah.
We've got initiatives in place to increase the withhold and to get reimbursement for a portion of the $21 million a year we spend on medical care. So my charge is enhance your resident initiatives. We've told your revenue initiatives, we told the residents that the only increase they were going to have in fees is cost of living, so they could take that to the bank. So my charge was go figure out ways we can raise revenue. And the original,
Yeah, I mean, I think that the 50 cent a month is with inflation. That goes back historical, right? That hasn't changed for years.
it was 25 cents a month right after the Civil War. So
Exactly.
yeah, and I cannot. I've charged that windmill for 4 years. I can't get any traction with DOD because they don't want to tax our service members
I understand.
anymore.
I can understand it. Thank you for your time, and I'll wait to have a conversation with whoever can give me some guidance on the
Travis and I will call you, and then we'll talk about eligibility, and we'll also give you a little more background on the golf course. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner, thank you for leading off the round, Rob, and you've done great today, Commissioner Dixon. So we are not having public testimony, as everyone knows, because it's an informational session, but there were comment letters that were sent in, and they're available on the website. If you haven't seen those, you can check those out. So I'd like to now jump over to Commissioner Cozart. Could you please a comment, and then we'll run through the commissioners? Thank you.
Sure. Appreciate the informational presentation. I guess I'm curious about the engagement, to say, I guess, a little bit more about the engagement related to the passes that are available. One, it occurs to me, one of the letters that was written in was from Ward 1 council member for the district. And so I'm certain that through some engagement with that council member's office and their constituent services, they would be happy to make sure that those passes are well known in the community. So I'm curious what engagement there has been around the passes with the council member's office and the relevant that council member, as well as the council members for wards 4 and 5, as well as some of the advisory neighborhood commissioners. That's my question.
Look forward to working with them on that. It's something we wish people would take better advantage
of. General Rippey, your video is kind of jumpy. Did you have more comment beyond that?
I don't know why it's so jumpy. I'm really calm.
Okay, that's great. So you said you're going to be working on that, and you'd hope people would take greater advantage. Was there any more that you said? I just don't know if your audio is working.
No, ma'am, that's it. I mean, we want to continue to engage with the community, but they have to understand that, want them to have access. We have a plan to have a 20-acre park for them, but we're a continuing care retirement facility that's open to a lot of community members. but at the same time, we're a federal installation. We're very concerned about security.
And General Rippey, this is Julia Castro. I'm going to stop your video because we are having quite a lot of difficulty, but you will still be on audio.
Great.
Thank you, Ms. Coster. Commissioner Cozart, if you're finished, then okay, then I'm going to move on to Commissioner McMahon, please. You're muted, yeah.
No, I'm not. Thanks, Madam Chair. Jen Rippey, thanks for coming back to, at Chair White's request to talk about the issues there. I think a lot of good information in the brief, which you submitted as part of the record, and I've read the comments. What's indicative of is there's still much work to be done, I think, with the community, which I know you're working on while we handle this key issue of security, not just as a military installation, but as you've highlighted for, protecting really a vulnerable community that you're responsible for providing great care. And we've been up there, as you know, a couple of times myself, had lunch with many of the residents and know what a great job goes on up there. So I think we'll continue to monitor the continued development of the master plan for Area A while you work forward with the community to develop Area B as a new neighborhood for Washington, D.C. So, Madam Chair, that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner McMahon. So Commissioner May.
Yeah, I have to say the situation right now with the Armed Forces Retirement Home and their relationship with the neighborhood is continues to be troubling. Now, I will say that it seems like things are better than they were when at least Commissioner Dixon and I sat through a marathon hearing on this subject in, I think, 2008. And
Wow.
it was really it's probably one of the longest meetings I'd ever been part of at NCPC. So things are a bit better than at that point, but they still seem to be some significant problems as evidenced by the letters that we received. And I have to say, I can understand some of the frustration that we are seeing in those letters.
I had an appointment for my son, Kyle Sheckler.
And, who's talking?
We've got Tim Sheckler. Could you please put your, he's on mute now.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Mhm.
Sorry, Tim, didn't mean to cut you off. Anyway, it's still troubling. And I've seen this repeated probably at this point in my career hundreds of times with different cases, either in NCPC or more likely at the zoning commission, where there is an inability to communicate. And there are certain things, certain suppositions that are made on the part of the agency or the property owner, the applicant, about what has to be. And so we heard evidence of that today. What has to be seems to be some level of security that's equivalent to a military base that is wholly not equivalent to this. It is not the same kind of operation. I understand the need for security and making sure that your residents are safe. That is completely understood. But this is not Fort Myer. And I think that there's a problem when you start with that as the baseline. So I think that there is some re-examination that has to occur on the part of the Armed Forces Retirement. Can I finish my statement before you say anything? All right, I'm going to continue. So I think there's some re-examination that has to be made of what your basis is. I also found that contradiction in the notion that, the gates were closed, not because of some nefarious purpose, but simply because of traffic management. I find that hard to accept as well, because if it really is about traffic management, cutting all people out of this space, this vast resource, potential resource for the community, simply because you had trouble controlling cars in 1955, I'm sorry, that's not a really good justification for continuing that now. My last statement about this, and you're welcome to respond when I'm done, but my last statement about this is that I believe that you're at the point now where if you're going to really make progress with the community, it's not about the particular things that you are planning to offer. It really should be about having a good facilitated conversation. There are people in this city and in others who specialize in working between communities or working with communities and institutions that reside within them. And I think that you would be helped tremendously by getting that kind of assistance. We have done that ourselves in the National Park Service, where we are not hearing what people are saying, and it helps to have that kind of assistance. The biggest example of this in town was probably the Georgetown University campus plan before the zoning commission many years ago, where they were at absolute loggerheads. And we, at the zoning commission, which I also serve on, we let the university know that they were not going to make progress until they made peace with the community. They hired a really good facilitator who has made and kept the peace. And you know, they went on hiatus with their campus plan approval. They came back a couple of years later, and they got an approval for that campus plan in one night, after having had, you know, 5 hearings of 5 hours each, where it was nothing but a parade of complaints about the university's behavior. They got through their hearing in one night. I think you need that kind of an intervention. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner May. General Rippey, did you have a comment on that, please?
I do. I'm well aware of community concerns are. We've had 3 meetings. We've had a lot of dialogue. We listen to them and they listen to us. I go back to, we are a federal installation. We're a continuing care retirement community. Security is utmost. It's my responsibility, okay? And it's very simple what they want. Unfettered access to the western side of our property, while we are going to have a 20-acre park for them with unfettered access on the eastern side. In fact, it looks like if we develop the golf course on the western side, that's going to be open to the community. So I would encourage the community to take care of the walking program we already have. If they want to get on the property in the summer, join the golf course and take advantage of the myriad of other things that are going on at Lincoln's Cottage. So I hear you. Thank you.
No, I
Thank
think
you.
actually, General Rippey, you really just made my point. So I think you need help. Thank you.
Okay, and I'd like to move on and have other commissioners contribute. So thank you, Commissioner May and Commissioner Argo.
Yes. Can you hear me, Chair Goodman?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. I was having a little trouble here. I would like to, oh boy, I'm just going to jump on this last point that Commissioner May made. I think it's very insightful, Commissioner May, to recommend, this is the kind of situation, I've been involved in this in several positions that I've had, and I probably am thinking of the same facilitator that you might be thinking of. But bringing somebody in, and you know, we could, I don't know, Chair Goodman, we could maybe even give them recommendations of people we know and that we've worked with that are in the business of facilitating communication and conversation oftentimes between neighbors and regulators. And I don't know how else to say it, and government. So I would like to, I think it was a great suggestion, and I just want to second that. And again, we could help identify several people that probably, if they were interested in that, I think would help them move this issue in a way that it might be difficult to move it in any other way. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Commissioner Argo. Commissioner Hewlett.
Yeah, I think everything's been pretty much said. I thank Ms. Herr and General Ripke for their presentations. I do think I would have liked to hear a little bit more sensitivity towards the, in the responses regarding the community. That was lacking from my standpoint. So it sounded a tad cavalier to me. So I hope that we really are continuing to work with the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hewlett. Commissioner Green?
Thank you. Thank you, General Rippey, for your presentation. I appreciate it. And, I just like to reinforce my fellow commissioners' recommendations to more fully embrace community discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Green. Commissioner Wright?
These he said, she said conversations make me uncomfortable when they come to us because it's hard to know. In full disclosure, GSA is advising on this project, so I feel, but it's not out of the Office of Planning and Design Quality. So we have not been intimately involved in this, but I would also, I would concur that some kind of facilitation, I would remind everyone of what a huge success in the end, I believe it was, that we had with something like this at the Sangamore Road project for DOD, which if you haven't seen it, make a point of going to look at it. It turned out it's a gorgeous looking campus. And if you'll remember, there was the neighbors were really upset about a parking garage, that about the height and the lighting and this, and there was a long, and stormwater management along MacArthur Boulevard. There was a host of issues. And in the end, with a little intervention, I think it was an exemplary planning process because the community, was heard and compromises were reached. I don't know if I think it's DIA who's there. I can't remember. I don't know if DOD would say that they were happy with the end, but I think the neighbors in the end felt heard, and perhaps something similar could take place because it certainly sounds, we're hearing contrary testimony and or reading it, and it's difficult to be put in the position of trying to be the arbiters of truth in situations like this. So I think if a third party could be engaged to facilitate the conversation, it might very well lead to a better outcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. Commissioner Dixon, I know you spoke earlier, but did you want to comment? You're next.
Yeah, I do want to say some things. First of
Okay.
all, I would like everyone for the general and for me to say thank you for your service. This is a facility that is designed to give some old soldiers a place to be cared for. And I think that, I maybe the general and I need to talk because I know how military might be, because I served as an enlisted person and as an officer, and they had a lot of exposure, Air Force Academy and on. So I got some issues, I got some concerns about privileges that we earned by putting our lives on the line. I didn't, but others did. I did in some ways. And we have to be sort of sensitive to that, and maybe we can talk more about it, if you get my drift. All my colleagues, none of them wore uniforms and never went through that, and that's not a problem. But folks have certain privileges that they like to have, and we have to protect those for them if we're really thanking them for their service. I'm done with my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Dixon. And Commissioner Davis?
No comments from me, thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. And I just want to say thank you to General Rippey for his service, as Commissioner Dixon pointed out, and also for the information he shared today. Just want to note, though, that we have received comment letters from the Friends of the Soldiers Home, Georgia Avenue Thrive, Councilmember Bian Nadeau, and just remember, while we don't have testimony at this meeting, there will be an opportunity for testimony and discussion in the future. And I, think that there can be two things can be true at the same time. I think that, there can be a desire for safety and security for people who live in a community. And there can also be a strong need for more engagement with the neighborhood and different engagement and perhaps a facilitator. So I just want to say it's been a good discussion. I think that we're on a path to uncover more in future testimony and presentation. And I want to thank the general, and I want to thank Ms. Her for the presentation today.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I guess I'm kind of used to an open forum. I come back in, but I got to make this point.
Anytime.
And I want to pull the commander in play from Boulding, Joint Base Boulding Anacostia. We in that community, in our Anacostia River East, we're able to use Boulding Air Force Base except a lot. We had functions there, we had all kinds of things there, and we had a great relationship with the base. Now with greater restrictions, we are not able to do that. But I guess we have to organize our community politically, because this is a political push. And if we started this, commander, you may be able to facilitate Berry Farms and folks in Anacostia being able to use the base at Boulding. There's a lot of things there we could use and like to use. And we could be right next to that NSA and the other sensitive places there. I don't think these soldiers who at the soldiers' home are any less valuable and sensitive at their age and what they've done than some of the most sensitive areas on Joint Base Boulding Anacostia. So we got to, because we have a very aggressive political community around this facility, to get it pushed and raise the letters and all the things that they sent. I read them. I've been through this longer than anybody here in terms of being a council member representing 4 in this area. It was my ward, and I could go on and on and on. But I think we got to be careful that we don't let the political efforts, which is very aggressive. Any community could do that. If we started doing that, and we could do that around every base in the United States, and it would be very interesting, the result. So be careful, folks, how you proceed on this. Thank you very much.
So it sounds like Commissioner Dixon is offering to be the facilitator.
I would be glad to do whatever I can do, Peter, but I think having dealt with it, I think they know how to facilitate very well. They go into places where you got people shooting and killing each other, and they facilitate. This is chump change. This is easy walk. I just think that the community has gotten some energy, which is understandable, and they see a target, and they, it's okay. That's the way it works. I played the game. I've been in the process. I'm also one of the people elected in this process, this group, and I know what it is when you organize and you get letters in to have a monument put in for a list of soldiers that you can obviously ask to. We want a monument. Oh, you got one. But thank you. I can get worked up on this because 23 years in, and whatever. Take care.
No, it's okay. It's all good input. Thank you, Commissioner Dixon and Commissioner May. Well, if there are no further comments or questions, I would just like to thank the staff and the Armed Forces Retirement Home Team, General Rippey specifically. So thank you, and look forward to future presentations. And then the next agenda item is an information presentation on the comprehensive plan introduction chapter update. So for this, we're going to be featuring Mr. Krishan Smith from the NCPC, and take it away, Mr. Smith. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Goodman and Commissioners. My name is Krishan Smith, urban planner with the Policy and Research Division. And today I will provide an information presentation on our agency's efforts to update the introduction chapter of the comprehensive plan. Next slide. During today's discussion, first, I will talk about the executive orders and NCPC's equity action plan. Next, I will discuss the comprehensive plan and how it informs all of the work that we do within the agency. Next, I will discuss the purpose of the introduction chapter update. Following, I will discuss our first focus group meeting from this past January, where we met with local community groups and stakeholders regarding our equity efforts. And lastly, I will discuss next steps going forward for the introduction chapter update. Next slide. First, I wanted to briefly talk about the comprehensive plan, which is composed of two elements: the district elements, which are prepared by the DC Office of Planning, which address traditional city planning issues such as land use, housing, and economic development. And lastly, the federal elements, which are prepared and managed by NCPC. The federal elements serve as the blueprint for the long-term development of the national capital and are the decision-making framework for commission actions on plans, proposals, and policies for federal land and building development submitted for its review. The federal elements are critical to informing all of NCPC's planning, policies, programs, and guidelines. Next slide. First, as a reminder, recently we provided an information presentation on how our agency is carrying out our Equity Action Plan. The Equity Action Plan was directly informed by the Biden administration's Executive Order 13985, which charges the federal government to pursue a comprehensive approach to advancing equity for all, including people of color and others who have been historically underserved, marginalized, and adversely affected by persistent poverty and inequality, as well as addressing systemic racism in our nation's policies and programs. Just this past month, a new Executive Order, 14091, further advances these goals, and NCPC will continue to incorporate equity policies and regulations that also advances this order. Next slide. In response to the release of Executive Order 13985 in 2021, NCPC prepared an equity action plan that advances equity through its core work programs and identified incorporating equity considerations into the comprehensive element updates. Since the federal comprehensive plan establishes the policy guidance for all of the work that NCPC does, the comprehensive plan was identified in action item number 2 of the equity action plan as a principal mechanism to incorporate equity policy within the agency. As identified in the action plan, NCPC will develop a comprehensive framework and guiding principles to address equity across the plan, guide subsequent updates, and inform agency review and planning initiatives. Since the comprehensive plan, again, informs many of the agency's core programs, it is critical to put a framework in place to address equity. Next slide. The introduction chapter outlines the planning framework for the comprehensive plan's federal elements. The comprehensive plan's federal elements are linked by 3 guiding principles. 1, to accommodate federal and national capital activities. 2, reinforce smart growth and sustainable development planning principles. 3, to support local and regional planning and development. Currently, the comprehensive plan lacks targeted policies, actions, and investments to improve outcomes for people of color, members of the LGBTQ+ communities, people with disabilities, and those adversely affected by persistent poverty or inequality. It also lacks analysis of direct and indirect impacts to these groups. While NCPC's mission and authorities have limited application to development on non-federal lands, there's still a need for a thorough evaluation of the comprehensive plan to determine which policies may lead to unintended barriers for underserved communities and where new or revised policies could reduce those barriers, particularly on racial and income inequities in the region and opportunities for improving accessibility for people with disabilities. NCPC also needs a comprehensive framework to examine potential inequities in the comprehensive plan and support equity outcomes across policy topics. The updated introduction chapter will provide the historical context of underserved communities in the region and practices that did more harm, as well as guide subsequent updates to the remaining federal elements around public engagement and policy. These updates also include acknowledging the existing policies in the comprehensive plan that have created barriers to underserved communities, developing a robust public engagement strategy for element updates that engages historically underserved communities, and finding opportunities to eliminate and or reduce those barriers, and incorporating federal and regional data sets that have been disaggregated by race, income, and other factors. Next slide. In an effort to conduct additional outreach, NCPC staff will engage with multiple community organizations, as well as local government and key federal stakeholders regarding our efforts to create an equity framework within the introduction chapter of the comprehensive plan. To engage with historically underrepresented groups and to have additional feedback outside of federal stakeholders, NCPC staff will engage 2 focus groups to gain additional information on equity planning within the National Capital Region. The first one was proposed as a discussion with local community stakeholders, and the second will be composed of planning representatives from select local governments within the National Capital Region that have large land holdings of federal lands. NCPC held our first focus group discussion with local community stakeholders this past January. This group was composed of community stakeholders who represent entities that work to advance land use and planning considerations for underserved communities, ranging from people of color, LGBTQ+, people with disabilities, and other organizations that advocate for those affected by poverty and inequities. Individuals representing a cross-section of these underserved groups were selected to participate in this initial discussion, as you can see on the screen before you. Discussions with other groups will follow. The goal of the discussion was to gather feedback on our approach to updating the introduction chapter. During the meeting, we presented the framework and approach for equity policy development, identified past policies that may have adverse impacts, and presented draft key considerations that would be used as the framework to address equity within the introduction chapter. This diagram describes the framework for how our agency considered equity impacts and barriers in order to develop the key considerations for equity in the comprehensive plan. This framework acknowledges that the agency's policies and programs, both historic and contemporary, have direct and systemic barriers. Direct barriers are short-term impacts on underserved communities, while systemic barriers are more long-term contemporary impacts of different policies and programs. Direct barriers can be identified by analyzing the specific effects of the policies, while systemic barriers were identified by conducting literature reviews, reviewing oral histories, and reviewing our own internal records. These factors help lead to how we should consider equity in the plan update. Next slide. NCPC staff identified some of our earlier planning policies and work that may have led to inequities and presented barriers to equity. And this is what we discussed with the focus group and asked them to address these and invite others who have traditionally not been involved to help us address these issues. There are 3 legacy policies and programs that we identified for exploring our equity principle and key considerations. And these include, first, next slide, the development of parks and recreation facilities within the district. Through the agency's iteration as the National Capital Park and Planning Commission, NCPC was responsible for purchasing land for the development of parks and playgrounds for the District of Columbia. Through the purchasing of land, the agency purchased and designated parks and playgrounds explicitly for whites or colored, while the policy of segregated park sites was designated by the Recreation Board of the District of Columbia. Some long-term barriers of this practice include reduced green infrastructure in historically underserved communities, increased adverse environmental impacts and recreational opportunities, a reduction in a sense of belonging, or increased perceptions of exclusion and lack of participation in formerly segregated spaces. The next policy identified is urban renewal and slum clearance policies. Between 1945 and 1972, NCPC prepared, adopted, and certified 12 plans for implementation by the Redevelopment Land Agency for the removal and rehabilitation of blighted, decayed, and deteriorating areas of the city. The District of Columbia Redevelopment Act empowered NCPC as a planning agency for all of Washington and its predecessor, the National Capital Park and Planning Commission. NCPC approved and adopted modifications to 10 of the 12 approved plans over time. Of these plans, 3 were for areas within Southwest, 1 in Northwest, and 1 in Northeast. The images shown on the screen is the Southwest Urban Renewal Project, which resulted in the leveling of 99% of buildings in the quadrant and the displacement of 4,500 African-American families. Some longer-term barriers of this policy include it contributed to residential segregation across the National Capital Region, a reduction in community wealth and capacity, a reduction in social cohesion and the disruption of social networks, and concentrated residents into public housing. Next slide. And lastly, we discussed a more recent policy that may have had adverse impacts: the integration of federal campuses in local community design. NCPC's Extending the Legacy Plan had a strong vision of directing federal development to all quadrants of DC and the National Capital Region to promote economic development directly and indirectly, using federal investment as a catalyst. The subsequent location of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, ATF, as shown in the image on the screen, the Department of Homeland Security's St. Elizabeth's Consolidation Campus, and GSA Suitland Federal Center were developed in a manner based on this policy direction that were built with a premium consideration of security. Although NCPC was not responsible for the location decision, NCPC reviews the federal development application for consistency with the comprehensive plan. The development of these facilities and campuses both have had positive and negative equity impacts. Some barriers that have resulted from these types of development include a reduction in access for residents at sites where federal facilities are located, creating physical, social, and economic barriers, and limited programmatic engagement between residents and federal facilities. When taking those barriers into account, staff identified 6 equity considerations and presented them to the group that we believe help to address challenges created by the policies mentioned. These key considerations will help frame future rewrites of the comprehensive plan elements, specific policies, and action items for the comprehensive plan. These key considerations include community engagement, local cultural affirmation, data analysis, economic development, sustainability and resiliency, and physical access. The stakeholders were then asked to identify, sorry, Tony, can you? The stakeholders were then asked to identify the key equity consideration that they find the most important for NCPC to focus on crafting policies and regulations on going forward. And this focus group identified community engagement and local cultural affirmation as the 2 primary considerations, which I will further elaborate on. Next slide. Community engagement was regarded as the primary consideration that NCPC should focus its efforts to more clearly develop policies and regulations on to address equity in the comprehensive plan. Focus group participants recommended that NCPC focus on crafting additional tools to outreach with the local community for them to better understand NCPC's authorities and the differences between NCPC's authorities, including what can be defined as the federal interest, the district's authorities, and other local governments' authorities and involvements. They expressed that this lack of clarity may limit innovation. Some of our opportunities that were identified by the focus group that how we can address some of these concerns include developing a toolkit that describes the quote unquote federal interest and what the agency does. This would also include a workflow on the steps on how a project is reviewed by NCPC staff during the planning, conceptual phases, through design and site plan phases, as well as review and approval by the commission. Another opportunity recommended by the focus group attendees would be to strengthen NCPC's role as a liaison between federal agencies and the local community by conducting or requiring federal agencies during earlier planning stages of their capital developments additional workshops and town halls with local community members as well as local government representatives. These community engagement opportunities presented by the focus group may be similar to some of our existing efforts that the agency has recently undertaken as part of the Pennsylvania Avenue Initiative, where we conducted an extensive amount of outreach to local community groups to gain their insight on how to develop a new inclusive vision for the Avenue. Next slide. Focus group members identified local cultural affirmation as the second highest consideration that NCPC should focus its efforts to more clearly develop policies and regulations on to address equity in the comprehensive plan. Some concerns identified by the focus group members include a lack of understanding how the agency may consider how gender, race, and a person's physical ability may impact how they may gain access to federal resources and amenities. They also identified that NCPC should address how the federal presence may affect opportunities for residents in underserved communities. Opportunities that were identified by the focus group include, as another form of a liaison role, to serve a role in coordinating with federal land holding agencies to activate federal lands and amenities within underserved communities. Also within this new liaison role, encourage more federal and local partnerships to address and advocate for the needs of underserved communities. Next slide. Currently, we are in the second phase of this project, which is engaging with community organizations and local federal agencies, which will be ongoing through the spring. We have already met with the first focus group of local community stakeholders. We will next conduct outreach with local planning department representatives from select local governments within the National Capital Region that have large land holdings of federal lands and installations. We will also conduct outreach with federal agency representatives from large land holding agencies within the National Capital Region to gain additional insight. Following these stakeholder engagements, NCPC staff will finalize the draft principle and key considerations to include in the introduction chapter and begin to prepare a first draft of the revision by mid-2023. Our goal is to have an updated draft submitted to the Commission by the fall of 2023. This concludes my presentation, and I stand by for any questions that you may have.
Wow. Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. That was very thorough and very, very impressive. Do the commissioners have any questions?
I would just say it's a powerful presentation, and it's sort of important to share. It's important to share that history again, so we never forget.
Agreed.
Absolutely. That was an excellent presentation. Commissioner Dixon, is that you?
Yes, it is. I'm trying to contain myself. First of all, I appreciate the presentation. As you said, it's very well done, but I'm looking for the teeth. And that's the thing we have to think about. First of all, the clock is running for certain communities, just like the clock is running for us with this global warming and all that stuff. It's running for communities. There's not a lot of time to capture and help. I've been in Anacostia River East when they moved all the folks from Southwest into public housing in our community. And we have been constantly trying to carry the effort, the challenge of that and so forth. They say that, land is limited and we control,
You just became muted.
They say also in our community that CREAM, cash rules every action made. So land is what we can help try to manage with our efforts, with the community, with the city. But in the end, it's the resources like trying to get folks in these communities to have income from jobs that come out of St. Elizabeth, companies that are in the community. They have opportunities at St. Elizabeth where we put these projects, where we put this stuff, so we can get people income enough to be able to meet the cost of living in these areas. We don't really want to just engage people to see the annihilation coming, planning and trying to show them what's happening when they have no ability to really seriously impact on it. You also have communities like in Anacostia, where you have 70% of our population are renters. They don't see an engagement or a connection to what the future has for them. Getting them engaged and getting them to understand how it's important for them to be there and do it. If you're on Connecticut Avenue and you have a meeting, people are going to show up even if they're renters because they understand what it means. But I won't go on. I got a lot of feelings about this. And it's interesting that we are concerned about trying to protect land for use by communities that are there. We in Anacostia, for east of the river, we have the park, Anacostia Park. I've been trying for multiple years now to get some attention on that. It's moving forward now. Well, time is running. Now we're putting a lot of money into another bridge with a lot of programming, but that's wonderful. But I could thank you much, Madam Chair. But it's more than engaging, showing people what's coming, that the bomb is coming, dropping on them. They're going to be wiped out. You got to find out how you can talk about what tools you can use to make it work for them, so they don't have to be pushed out. And I think that may be out of our control. It is probably definitely in the control of the city government. I think we need to look at stuff like, and this is outside of our range, making sure that that your property taxes don't go up on residents who are there, And if they transfer that to their family members so they can stay there, then they should do that. Those kinds of things, but that's not in our ability. Thank you. I could talk about this for a long time. I'm also a little troubled historically on the commission. I was involved in many things like these focus groups. I wish I could have maybe been pulled in a little bit just to observe and listen, but you know, that's another discussion. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Commissioner
you.
Dixon. And we will be sure to pull you into the upcoming focus groups.
That's a great idea, Christian. Commissioners, other input, questions? Otherwise, I'm going to run around the circle. Commissioner Hewlett?
No comments. No additional comments.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Green?
That was very powerful, and I really appreciate all the work that went into that. And thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Wright?
I don't have too much to say other than there I think that the commission can use this document to educate people, because there's so much that we don't know as citizens of the world about the kinds of things that subtle as well as overt that have created the circumstances that we are living with today. So the more you can illuminate history by giving examples, not just pointing at illustrating cause and effect. This is this is the plan, or these were the policies, and draw a through line that's very clear to what the result was, and not leave it to people to draw conclusions that aren't overtly illustrated, because especially people who might resist thinking that this is a real thing, that injustices have found their way into the planning process systemically. People who want to resist that idea, unless you're extremely direct, it will be ignored.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. Commissioner Davis, please.
I appreciate the presentation and the comments of the other commissioners, and I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kozart.
Yes, definitely appreciated the presentation. See a lot of opportunities for kind of merging the approach on the federal elements with the approach on the district elements, as we're coming up on less than 2 years starting a complete rewrite for the district elements of the comp plan. So what you're learning from these focus groups is incredibly timely. Excited to be involved going forward. I think there may be some opportunities for our executive director reports to reflect some of this history on various sites. And that could be one way, to Commissioner Wright's point, of educating folks publicly. Also excited for opportunities where NCPC may be exploring ways to look at this at a bigger level, sets of panel discussions and other things that would be a part of that. And we're happy to partner in that. But this is great work. Looking forward to what's next, and happy to partner and collaborate going forward. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kozart. Commissioner McMahon.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Smith, for a great presentation. I know the great amount of work that went behind doing what you're doing and what you're pulling together with the community. I appreciate those efforts. I don't really have much more to add than my very much more smarter on these issues fellow commissioners, but look forward to participating in the future. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McMahon. Commissioner May.
Thank you. I also appreciate getting us a presentation. I think you showed one that's a little more detailed than the one that we received. And I'm wondering if we could get the final version of that, because I think there were some slides that were not in what I have.
Sure.
But, yeah, thank you. I would just want to underscore a few of the comments. I think Commissioner Wright was correct in pointing out that we need to face certain things about the history of planning in the District of Columbia and be direct about it. And, you know, where we can make changes to try to address those sorts of things. Sometimes they're small, like how things are named. And sometimes they're very big, like, you know, the erasure of entire neighborhoods, which have occurred with the blessing of this commission in its past. It's not easy to address these things, but I think it's important to be able to do some of those things. But I also want to say that, you know, looking forward, having really robust community engagement is a critical component of this, and not just in terms of NCPC's planning efforts and the policies that the commission establishes, but also in how we expect other federal agencies to be working with the communities that surround them. So, and I think that's particularly timely today, having had the discussions, some of the discussions we had. So I really do appreciate this, and hopefully it will be a good step forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner May. Commissioner Argo.
Yeah, I really appreciate the work that's being put into us to this, and the work that we're going to continue to do on this. Oh, and I don't have my video on. Okay. And first, I'm not quite sure where this came from, but I somehow I'm getting a feeling that that somehow in this effort we could engage in some kind of partnership with the university community in the District of Columbia, which is very robust, and for and what we, you know, what that community has to offer. I will think more on that and offer more detail as I think more on that, but it's a thought.
Thank you, Commissioner Argo. And again, I just want to congratulate, Mr. Smith and team at NCPC for this excellent presentation and for all the work that went into it. I'm also looking forward to the work ahead. It certainly is, it's not just important, it's the imperative of our times. And that's been said before about equity. But I think our commission, and I'm new to this, I'm very new to all of this, but we have an opportunity here to make real change. And I think that Krishan sees that, others see that. And I know that, this administration has made it the priority. So it's also part of our charge to take a look at ourselves, not just in terms of our internal practices and policies as an agency, but to look at, as has been said by many others already, to look at the planning proposals that come before us. And I've said this to staff, but moving the BEP presentation just jumped out at me with moving to that particular location where the production staff, not the administrative staff, but the production staff is so negatively impacted because there isn't transportation. There's no mass transit to that location. So we're immediately picking winners and losers. And I think that those are the kinds of things, if we want to put teeth into the work that we do, we have to look at all of those barriers to prosperity, whether it's housing, whether it's a job and income, whether it's transportation, whether it's engagement in our community and our schools. We have an opportunity here, and I'm just so excited about this piece of the work that's being done by NCPC along with the climate work. So I just want to say that we have a chance to advance equity and resilience, and I'm willing to do the work that it takes, but I look for leadership from people like Mr. Smith and others on the staff here and other commissioners. So thank you. If there are no further comments or questions, believe it or not, this concludes our session today. And thank you for all the input and the good thoughts. And I know we have work ahead, so I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.